This is the point of the podcast when Pat says, Diplo will go into that market at some point if he hasn't already. But
I'm still. You had to bring up fucking Diplo. Goddamn motherfucker put out a sequel to his fucking Bro Country crossover album, like with a Morgan Wallen feature. I don't know fucker.
Well, that as someone who has proudly never, I'll say willingly, heard a Morgan Wallen song, I was stunned when my friend said to me the other night, and then I subsequently, sent you guys. I was like, how are there 36 songs on this most recent album? 36 songs. You talk about stream trolling. 36 songs on that album.
He has a song with Lil Durk.
He sure does. And this motherfucker has a whole redemption arc narrative about, like, I guess the idea is that he got, like, so he said a slur and got caught on camera for it. And he blamed it on alcohol. So his whole album's about, like, I don't want to drink no more. Like, I mean, well, I guess it's like, that's the idea, although it's got a bunch of drinking songs on it to stream troll. And then he has the nerve to cancel a concert, no-show concert, because he got too drunk. And we're not, but Frank Ocean, bailing out early on a concert at Coachella is worse than 10 Hitlers and 29 11s. But we're just going to let this guy. So, that's America. That's American discourse.
I hear Morgan Wallen's going to have a Kramer feature on his next album as well, because he's all about forgiveness.
Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick 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 tick, the clock tick 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 faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks
Ordinarily, I would try to steer us into a transition, but we might as well start the episode here as it is.
Just hard turn, fuck it. This podcast
hard turn. From talking about, not so great music to great music. So, on that note, listeners, hello, welcome. This is your Living Off Borrowed Time for this week. This is installment 3 now of our Playboi Carti month of May. I'm, as always, joined by Patrick, but I've also got 2 special guests for this episode, one of which he's been on the podcast many times, legendary RYM user, and also a adamant fan of Playboi Carti and the music that we'll be talking about in this episode. That's lookAghost, aka John. What's up?
Yo.
Always good to have you back. And, of course, a special guest. I almost stumbled even introducing them because I was so excited. I've got bodgahermosa on RYM. I hope I didn't just butcher your username on air.
Nah, you got it. Yep.
You got it.
Bodgahermosa on RYM with a nice little typo. I forgot the E in bodega, but I'm not paying for the subscription, so it's cool.
Right. I always wondered if that was intentional.
It was not.
With the amount of weird names you'll see on the site, as I said to you off air before we started, I kind of filled in the blanks already. So I always thought of you as Bodega, but I do have to give a special credit because, one, I'm really, really happy to have you on the show because, as we'll get into, you are a Playboi Carti extraordinaire, among other things. Maybe you don't want to be known as that, but that was what I can tell. And actually, our other guest, John, he recommended you, so that's,
I appreciate that, man. I'm a avid reader of your lists and everything, so that's really sick to hear.
Yeah, man. I felt like every time I've like an obscure like Playboi Carti single that like got recovered from some random SoundCloud somehow was made into a legit entry, like you were usually behind it.
Yeah, I found some workarounds to get some singles on there for sure.
Doing the dirty work.
Exactly. I've had a lot of singles taken off Rate Music as well.
I was going to say Moment of Silence and rest in peace to all the singles we've lost over the past 3 years. Too many. Those Lil B singles especially. Not like a lot of losses there. Any of the YouTube singles, the SoundCloud singles, it's been hard.
Yeah, it's hard to see that go.
Shout out my graveyard.
Shout out to we're still.
Are you able to view your graveyard? I'm actually curious to see what's in mine.
You have to there's no way to link it on your main page. You have to actually I forget how I only ever see it when it says you have a new item in it. I always meant to just but I was going to
screenshot that.
I was going to give a special shout out to Making the Band, which I think I've had reviewed like 5 times now, and it keeps getting fucking taken down.
By Earl, right?
Earl. I was Earl Clam.
Evil Gianni.
Thank you, because I've matched every single time I said it on the show.
Yeah, I have had quite a few Destroy Lonely singles get purged as well, which was really hard to part with.
Was that only SoundCloud, or was it like YouTube or?
They were SoundCloud. I just think honestly the site has a very outdated way of like categorizing what's official, because they are like official drops from like SoundCloud DJs, hosts. Like you guys are familiar with that concept, but I don't think like Big Man Sharifi and his buddies are. So alas, it's gone.
the feds.
Yeah,
but shout out to the song You and I by Destroy Lonely, which has the same sample as Level by A$AP Rocky. It's a really great song.
Yeah, great song. Great song. Well, speaking of great songs, we've got a lot to cover here. And also, speaking of singles that have been removed, a number of them have been removed, including one most famously. But
well, I was about sample.
Go ahead, Pat.
One sample right now, actually, that led to a song that was never on anything that's on this album we're going to talk about. But don't let me step on your intro for the second straight time, please.
No, absolutely. Thank you. Well, we're going to be talking about 2, I was going to say albums, but I guess I'll say eras, because one of them isn't really an album, but 2 eras of Playboi Carti this episode. You will hear down the road, once we finish here, we're going to be talking with a couple other special guests about the album Whole Lotta Red. Perhaps you're familiar with it. I don't know. If you're not familiar with it, you probably haven't listened to this podcast ever in your life, so that's fine. Anyway, before we even get there, we've got to talk about the era that predated that, the Whole Lotta Red leaks era, the post or just barely post Die-Lit 2018 to late 2020 era, where we had a lot of nothing and a lot of anticipation for an album. And part of the reason I think there was a lot of anticipation was, one, because of how many good songs are being released on or prior to Whole Lotta Red officially dropping in leaked format, unreleased format, when we'll get into Carti's reputation as an artist who has all these great leaks in a second. But I also think a lot of the anticipation was because Die-Lit aged like a fine wine, especially throughout the year. And since it's been 5 years since it dropped, I figured I would get either of your, both your guys' opinions on Die-Lit. So I guess I'll start with you, Bodega. You can talk about, okay, at the time Die-Lit dropped, were you a Carti fan? Were you anticipating it? Did you love it when it dropped? Like, kind of what was your appreciation for the record at the time, and what about now? 5 years later.
Yeah, totally. So, in a way, Die-Lit was kind of my intro to Carti, really. I wasn't a fan beforehand. I was obviously aware of like Magnolia, Woke Up Like This, those pretty popular singles. But what really hooked me into the album was, it was in high school at the time. There was this one kid, so shout out Brendan, who was hyping up Die-Lit, saying it was the album of the year around the time it came out, making kind of a big meme out of it. Eventually, I was like, all right, what's the fuss about? Let's check this out. So I listened to it, and very first track, I knew something was special with this. I mean, that has to be the greatest intro of the 2010s decade in my eyes. It's just incredible. Beating out Nikes by Frank Ocean by a little bit, I would say. But yeah, I mean, that album to this day, it's probably like my go-to easy listening album when I don't know what to put on. Throw that on, and it's super catchy, still hits. Every track is great in my opinion. I don't really see any like major low points. It is it's kind of definitive of Carti's sound as well. I would say is like what most people identify him with. I know the Whole Lotta Red really shifted things up, but usually the go-to when I recommend somebody Carti would be Dial It. Seems to have like the widest appeal, and iconic ad libs, vocal inflections really grew on this album. Songs like Flatbed, and yeah, I don't know. What do you guys say on the matter?
I mean, John, you wanna hop in on your takes, because listeners will know that Patrick and I will have gone long about Dial It already at this point by the time this episode comes out. But we'd love to hear your kind of thoughts on it then and now.
Yeah, totally. So the last couple of weeks I've been kind of just running back through Carti's discography just to kind of contextualize like where the WLR leaks kind of stand like in comparison to everything else. And I until the self-titled, but completely missed like his whole SoundCloud era. Like I don't know, I was not plugged in to that scene really yet. But once the self-titled dropped, that kind of like opened up everything for me. And and when Dial It came out, like in particular, like a very definable era to me, because like I had just started law school and I was heavily getting into Space Ghost Perp and SoundCloud, and it was just kind of caught up in all that. And it just fucking still is one of the best things I've ever heard, and it's just aging amazingly.
Couldn't have said any better. Both of you definitely agree. Also, Bodega, this is how I know. I know you're a couple years younger than me, but at least judging by your RYM. But I know you're late 2010s, kid, teenager. Yeah. By the fact that you were like, Nikes is my second favorite intro of a long time. I was like, oh god, he's spitting. It's cliche, but like, they're definitely up there. Yeah.
Yeah, it just came definitely the first one that came to mind. And to add a little bit to what I was saying, bouncing off what John said, like, it also was kind of the portal into this, weird, twisted world of sort of somewhat underground, quote unquote, rap and cloud rap scenes like the Plug scene. It was really Carti's music that got me into that, because after I really liked Dial It and self-titled, I delved into that old SoundCloud Plug stuff, his Awful Records era and everything like that. And, from there I found SGP, Lil B, the whole Raider Clan scene, guys like Metro Zoo, Main Attractions. So that was kind of my gateway drug was Dial It in a way. So it's a really special album to me. Although I will say Whole Lotta Red has taken its throne, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to say, in particular, like, I got, from Dial It and stuff, I found, like, Broke Boy and all those songs, and it led me back to the whole Beat Plugs producer roster, and that was a huge rabbit hole for me that, like, still is giving me so much good music.
Yeah, it still bears fruit, and it's pretty crazy that it does that. I mean, we're in a different decade at this point, and it's still producing great music. But yeah, I mean, so just for listening context for the listeners, we're going to be talking about this era through the lens of the RYM specific, but also not really, because I've seen it in a lot of places. The Whole Lotta Red Leaks and Beyond bootleg, which is varying numbers of tracks depending on where you get it from and how you download it, etc. But encapsulating a lot of the leaks from that time period. But I wanted to actually present this question before we even get any of that. Like, Carti, I think it was this era that really put out leaks as leaks were already mainstream. You could listen to them in the 2010s and even earlier, like albums leaked and people heard them. But it felt like Carti's leaks were different. It felt like everybody heard them and everybody was like tapped in online, whether it was like, so they were used in like social media clips or things like that. It's a very unique, I think, relationship that Carti fans and like people who were interested had with his unreleased music.
Are you arguing like leaks is like a strategic promotional tool, or at the very least like the way they happened became a promotional tool over time? Possible type?
No, I'm not arguing for that as like an exact point. My more thing is, to me, it's fascinating that within that Carti is, to me, the biggest version of that, the biggest version of leaks as like the fact that it was so commonplace in his music for a song to leak and for that song to be great, and then that song, all those songs never ended up on anything. And I don't know how many other artists that's really happened to where it's this amount of music.
Yeah, I was going to say eventually, and I'll let you both talk. Like, I've got one more point. I was just going to say that I wanted to eventually bring up at the end of the episode is the artist you could argue has like the best shadow discography, like where it's like the most unreleased music that's great, or like, you know, albums that you could say are unreleased albums that are better than his studio albums to ratio, which we can have that discussion again, but it's just interesting you brought that up right out the gate. And I wasn't trying to say that it was like an intentional strategy, more that it became a strategy over time with his fan base, that it kind of became like a self-fulfilling promotional strategy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
like,
it's part of his mystique. He was feeding into it for sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, he definitely had no problems with presenting himself as like a mysterious artist.
I'm of the belief that he did not contribute to the leaks. I know that's a common theory, but I definitely think he kind of let the fans and leakers like do the job for him, in a way.
Yeah,
he kind of kept his name
built his brand
out there. Yeah, it built his brand of mysteriousness, which was really like, I mean, he's still kind of riding off that to this day, but it did start around 2019, 2018. Forgot what else I was going to say, but yeah.
It's so hard. It's so hard to do that. You look at like notable examples of that I can think of off the top of my head, and it's like these are going to be very disparate examples, but hear me out. So the first one I can think of, the earliest one I can think of is like Jay Electronica, right? And then the second one I can think of is The Weeknd, way back in like the Trilogy days, where people didn't know what his face looked like or whatever. Then the third one is Frank. I think that's pretty self-explanatory in just terms of like scarcity. And then Carti being the fourth one. And I don't know now who's like kind of carrying that mantle, maybe. But I mean, Frank and Carti still. But just it's so hard to do that now in the hyper, like we know everything about you at any given moment age.
My thought was, I agree with most of those. Like, yeah, you had Jay Electronica who won't put out a fucking album.
See, I think Jay Electronica's thing actually was because he knew I think we now know he didn't actually really have it. I would argue.
I would agree.
People would disagree, but I would agree with you.
Yeah, I would. He got to eventually, and I'm just like, yeah, I think he held on to that because he knew he built himself up way too big with the Exhibit trilogy and the features and everything. And Act 2, if that in fact was it, because I think Act 2, obviously more than a written testimony, is much closer to what he would have come up with when it was time to actually perform. So he just kind of stalled. He froze. Like Jay Electronica, it wasn't a strategy. He choked.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree. He blew a 3-1 lead, like in a playoff series. Like that's, to use a sports analogy. That's kind of like he had everything in front of him. He had the cosigns. He had the producers. Anything he wanted, and I don't think it led to nearly as great of a career as it should have. I mean, not even close.
The only reason we have what we have now is like contract stuff. Like the only reason a written testimony happened is like a contract thing, an obligation. And then Act 2 was just kind of, I would argue, an attempt to recover his legacy after that. Because otherwise he would have just sat on that forever.
That did seem like a desperate last minute, like, hey guys, this is what you're looking for, right? That release. That wasn't it like only on Tidal as well?
Yeah, and again, Jay just kind of having his hand in it as usual. So, I mean, neither are bad. Like, neither are terrible. Although, I do not like Jay Electronica's performance on a written testimony. I think he is very annoying on that album. I think that's a much better Jay-Z album than a Jay Electronica album, which is really not what you want out of your Jay Electronica album. But this is also not about Jay Electronica. But it was just more about the idea of mystique, and like that I feel like Jay Electronica kind of adopted that more out of necessity than out of strategy after a point. Like, I think for a while it was kind of just like a buzz building thing, but he intended to drop when he was going to drop. And then
the only other one I can think of, like, obviously very different persona, very different, from the other artists mentioned, but just in terms of the way like bootlegs get built around, possible albums that may or may not exist, I thought of Kanye.
True.
Yeah, I guess this was around the time, or it was a little earlier, but like Yandhi shit was going on as well. So
those Yandhi songs are not good, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't
really
entirely. Yeah, I don't entirely disagree. There's a few in there, but it never really struck me as much. But I do actually see the appeal of that, making your own album as a preference to what actually came out or what might not come out. I think there's a real DIY internet music forum kind of appeal to that. I think we're all somewhat susceptible to.
Well, isn't Yandhi KP's favorite? Kanye?
Yeah, and that does track. That absolutely, yeah. That is, shout out Wyatt, who will be producing this, and
I was kind of
probably
thinking. I actually had a point.
Who will be listening to this right now?
And I had a point to make about Yandhi versus WLR Leaks, and it was just more about, like, again, another point for the end about being able to pick and choose your own version. But there's so much more here than the Yandhi session stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would argue there's an album of, like, I have Yandhi at a 7 or an 8. There's an album there that you can pick a good album, and there are a few great songs in it. He didn't finish it. He hasn't finished anything since Pablo.
Even that's arguable.
He finished Kids See Ghosts because Mike Dean and Kid Cudi finished Kids See Ghosts, and he was there for some of it. Like, that's why Kids See Ghosts got finished. He personally has not finished anything since Pablo, and finished can have heavy air quotes around it. So,
yeah,
but same
that's
sort of
true.
but
he's been turning in half of his homework for a while.
I mean, he never finished college. You can't blame him, but they still gave him a doctorate afterwards. So why would he have any of that to do? But
that was a good one.
But anyway, my point was about Yandhi versus this is that it's the same sort of appeal about picking and choosing what you like. There's 18 million Yandhi edits out there, 18 million edits of all this other unfinished shit that has all these demos out there on Reddit now. And it's like, especially Donda. Donda is probably a better example than Yandhi because Donda has like so many things from that session. And you can and they drop the deluxe too. But this is better music than all of that. So
yeah.
And the thing
sorry, go ahead.
Let's move on to the artist we're supposed to talk about and the music he made.
Really briefly though, I want to ask you guys a question about Carti and this whole phenomenon of leaks in general.
Sure.
Do you think there's any artist whose unreleased music is as well known as Carti's? Or is as much as a phenomenon? Because I could actually think of maybe one that you guys would have a better memory of when it was happening.
Unreleased in this genre?
Yeah, we'll keep it in hip hop.
Off the top of my head, no. My only question would be, or not question, my only kind of thought would be, and I wasn't really around for this, didn't Doom have his shit leak a bunch of times in the 2000s? I don't know if that's true. I'm just taking a guess, but
I've read that, but I wouldn't know firsthand, of course.
I mean, he alludes to it on Mad Villain. There was a version of Mad Villainy that leaked. I think we talked about this on the Mad Villain episode. It was called Our Mad Villainy was what it was tagged with. And it was like a shorter version of Mad Villain. So the version of Mad Villain, that was 15 tracks. Mad Villain is 24 tracks. He alludes to it on Rhinestone Cowboy, says wasn't even tweaked and it leaked into cyberspace. That's about that. That's why there were second Mad Villain sessions. On the Passion of the Weiss, Oral History of Mad Villainy, he talks about that, or Weiss talks about that. Might have talked about it in his Pitchfork review of it as well. So there's definitely that. Beyond that, Doom stuff did circulate on the internet, but there's also the theory that Doom might have been the one doing it himself to get his shit out there. I don't know how true that is about the Mad Villain stuff, because that seemed like a more, Stone's Throw was distributed by a major technically. So I think that was a more high profile leak. That was a time where stuff was leaking a lot more frequently and it was a bigger deal and it was pissing off major labels with money. That wasn't it. They weren't quite as laissez-faire about it then.
Right. Well, could the only other artist be Wayne, you think?
Wayne. Yeah.
That's exactly what I had in mind. And I was going to see if anybody was going to mention it.
That seems very obvious.
Yeah.
Drought 3
I can't believe I didn't think of that.
6 unreleased albums that are fascinating shit. Yeah.
So
because I wouldn't know for the time. Obviously, I was basically in diapers, but I do know people have lots of memories of going on like these, torrent sites and getting packs of Wayne songs that weren't on albums. And a lot of them seem to be pretty well known. So I was wondering if those are like maybe more widely recognized.
What you would be talking about is that when Carter 3 came out, there were a lot of people, and you can read Nodima's review of this, and he talks about it. And he has some mixtape reviews of Wayne from around that period that also cover this sort of stuff. That there was and when you say unreleased, I think like, again, we're talking about like mixtapes at the time that were not like official mix. They aren't like mixtapes as you think of them now.
Yeah, I'm talking about like the Empire leaks.
Yeah, the strongest team in the streets, Trap Nesters Inc., etc. Yeah. But yeah, so he talks about how Carter 3, when it came out, kind of disappointed people just because there was so much stuff they expected they didn't get. Songs they'd been looking forward to, which is also a weird mindset too, because now I feel like people are so entitled, they'd be pissed off if they got songs they'd heard.
I think the issue is that a lot of this happened with Whole Lotta Red's release as well. Because of leaks and snippets and that whole culture, people have like an idealized version of this project in their head. And when it's not exactly what they get really pissy over it. I mean, Twitter was going wild within like the first 5 minutes of Whole Lotta Red being out.
Yeah, and that's as good of a segue, because you saw a lot of these songs that were leaks kind of like immediately get like fan favorite status, at least in my opinion. Like, yeah, it just helped build and build and build the anticipation, which is kind of what we've been alluding to, earlier. Like, on the topic of the you can pick and choose and make a great album, me personally, this is speaking from a very biased, fan of Carti, who listened to all this material pretty much in real time as it was happening and was like, losing my shit. I still hold this in like extreme high regard. Have it at a 5, whatever you want to call it. You can speak to the legitimacy of having a bootleg as a 5. I can speak to the legitimacy of who fucking cares, but like, etc. Right? Yeah. So I think that like it's super cool, and that is my main like thesis for me for the episode is like he made like a 5-star album or close to it, whatever, a great record of unreleased leaked material, and then eschewed almost all of that for the actual record. And so that's what I think is so unique about this era is it's literally a different defined era because nothing he did on the subsequent album sounds like it.
It's a totally like what could have been situation here. We're actually pretty lucky to have heard any of this in general. Otherwise, it would have just been a big gap of silence in between. We would not have heard his evolution in real time the way we did.
And people were pissed off. Speaking for myself, we were all real pissed we weren't hearing shit for a while. We did not think, like, I mean, I guess you said you heard it in real time. Like, I just remember being really annoyed that, like, I thought this album wasn't coming out. I didn't hear any of this shit in real time.
I think most of it I heard in 2019 throughout that year. I'm not gonna say I heard everything until it was assembled. Then I heard the whole thing. But I would say I heard like 75% of it in real time as they were coming out because I was routinely checking for it, or I would hear something on YouTube, or it would be my recommendeds, or a friend would send me, whatever the case may be. I know that the ones that the world collectively heard were, the first song on this, though the biggest one probably, Kid Cudi. I'm not calling it by the other title.
That's a Young Nudie title through and through, though. Come on.
Oh, of course, but it needs it needs food in it.
That's fair.
We need food in it.
Yeah, no, Pissy Pamper would not be very good. So that's fair.
Yeah, I would hope not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that one was like the one that I heard the most on like Twitter and YouTube. And
I cannot believe. Well, I guess I can believe that with the construction of the song that was going to be on Slinier or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but like with the construction of it, it's obviously like Carti's the feature. He bursts in at the end. But I like that as an intro for, I'm like, obviously this is a fan-made thing, but I love that as the intro for the Carti album. Like, it's that sort of, I always come back to like, Cam opens Killer Season by letting 40 Cal start it off. Like Earl opens Doris by letting SK LaFleur do his thing for a minute. Like, you let somebody else start off your album and then you come in and crush it. I love that. Like, I just love that construct. And
that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. I think people, it was annoying when this actually leaked for the first time. So this was a snippet of just Carti's part. So when people found out it was actually mostly Nudie and like a little fraction of Carti, people were kind of upset, but well, Nudie's great, obviously. And I think the way the song builds up to that like generational verse, it really adds to it in my eyes. It makes it even better.
Honestly, like the snippet and like the finished Young Nudie product are like two different things in my mind, because I remember I messaged Caleb this the other day. I was like, this 1 minute fucking like looped low ass quality snippet with like, I don't know, some like Carti like and some like weird like TV guide fan edit. Like, it's just still so fucking good. Like I listened to that 1 minute snippet.
Oh yeah, me too.
Sometimes.
Yeah. For that.
Again, I was like actively seeking this stuff. I was checking subreddits and like leaked forums for new snippets, new leaks, and all that stuff. So I heard the same one, and I was like, "This is heavenly." That's really when I was already a fan at that point, but I'm like, "This guy's evolving. Like more is coming out of this, and it's really unique."
Yeah, that was the moment like that I was like, "Okay, I am following this. Like this is something I really need to like pay attention to."
Yes. I feel like Flatbed Freestyle was kind of like the precursor of the high-pitched voice, but this song and another one we'll talk about, Molly, or it's also called Not Real.
Not Real, No Stylist.
Yeah, which now you can't even
three
call
different
it No
titles.
Stylist. That's Lone Song.
In my mind, those two were the biggest ones.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right, because
and Cancun.
Oh yeah, Cancun with the video too. The little like fan-made video.
Yeah, I was
rounds out the top three.
Yeah, Caleb, I was saying the other day, So Fago's "Let's Lose Our Mind" is the best snippet, but then I was like, wait, Cancun is way more iconic in my eyes.
Cancun is an iconic snippet. Like that's another. Those three. Yeah, John's 100% right. Those three are like the ones that I absolutely heard a lot, and were ones that people definitely heard even if they didn't know they were hearing it. Like the Kid Cudi Pissy Pamper, whatever you want to call it, that snippet was in a video that kept circulating around Twitter around the time of the Brooklyn Nets team doing like a dance or whatever on the side of their bench, like just bench reactions throughout an NBA game, and it was playing over and over, like it was that Carti verse was like playing over it, and that became like synonymous with the team. So anytime there was like a highlight involving the Brooklyn Nets and the NBA account posted to Twitter, it had people in the mentions posting like that video or whatever. So yeah, that was just one example.
So I was curious about too, because it said in the tracker that this was intended for the Nudie album. It didn't make it. It was a sample clearance issue, and apparently this is Pierre pulled from a J-pop album from 1980 for the sample on this. That's the loop.
I mean, he's a genius.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and it's just another.
I mean, Twilight off Sakogare from 1980. Like, yeah, Pierre's fucking genius. This might be my favorite. Like, this is top 5 Pierre beats. Like, easy.
Totally.
This was, I think this was Pierre's like breakout moment too. Like, just in terms of his like solo career, like being around the corner.
Just another entry in songs that we lost to sample clearances and the awful loss surrounding it.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, and that's a good point, John, also about the solo career of Pierre, where he put out that same year, 19, he put out Life of Pierre 4 and started to get more traction that way, and being known as more than just the guy that does Carti beats,
Right.
I'm also wondering, like, Japanese labels about this stuff are really litigious, because I remember, again, I don't know how we loop back to Kanye not finishing his work or whatever, but that was I don't think it was a J-pop sample, never mind, on Yay, that they gutted the shit out of I Felt Like Killing You, or I Feel Like Killing You. Remember?
Oh, the one that got changed after it released, right?
Yeah, it got changed, and the beat was so good, and then the version you can see on streaming now is terrible. Like, it was all the sample. Like, they could not do anything with that sample. And it was around the same time period, too. I don't know why I thought of that, but completely.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Like, to me, just let people cook with sampling. Like, I don't like, and obviously, the OGs get paid, sure, but I mean, this is music. We've been repurposing and using little bits and pieces of for decades and decades and decades. Like, just no reason for it not to keep going. I mean, you're totally right, Bodega, with the laws and like the ridiculousness of it. Like, to me, it's all very stuffy and like anti-art. But
I have to say, this, now that I think of it, like, what are some other Pierre songs that actually have a prominent sample aside from like lion roars and stuff?
I mean,
I'm trying to think, but usually he makes his own melodies, I want to say.
Yeah, because like even his breakout stuff. So like the self-titled, all that is his own melodies, right? Like the stuff he did on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think
the
of
PR
him as
stuff.
like a sample-heavy producer.
Yeah, he's definitely like bases it. Yeah, mostly his own melodies, like you said. So.
Yeah, this is definitely it's a really special piece of production from him. It's not really like anything else he's done.
And you can totally hear. You know what's so funny, Patrick? You mentioned that the original song. I now know where I remember. I've heard the original song before multiple times. It's on a fan-made Playboi Carti bootleg, actually. The original song is like half in there. It's like the original song, and then the second half is Carti's verse on the leak. And that's how the song goes. It's on that like fan-made Opium bootleg or whatever that was floating around a couple years ago.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that bootleg is some wild shit. There's stuff all over the place. There's like a Twin Peaks sample in there that leads into Molly. There's a lot going on.
Whoa.
Oh, is that the Charlie stuff on it? Like,
yes.
Oh yeah, there's a Charlie XCX feature on Control.
There's a pre-Charlie feature. It's weird. Like that's
he does there's a Teen X times Charlie XCX like quote unquote feature on it, and it actually sounds fire. It's actually really good.
Free username for anybody out there, Teen XCX. Thank me later.
Damn, giving out game on the podcast. That's crazy. Yeah, it's 5 a.m, the Charlie song, which was from, what was that from? Like the XCX World era, but she never dropped it. Something like that.
It's another good leak album.
Yeah.
There's no more internet brain crossover than Charlie XCX fans and Carti fans.
I'm not gonna lie, I was fiending for that collab. I wanted that to happen for real.
Absolutely. Make it happen.
That collab would be like the mascot of the podcast. What do you mean? that collab would be an immediate instant reaction episode right there.
Dude, the Carti crossovers, there should have been more, because his feature on Solange is I do not remember the name of the album, but the song is Almeida.
Yeah.
And even Earthquake by Tyler, in a way. It's not really a rap song.
I think Earthquake, and it's amazing. He does like 4 bar
and got body roll.
And it's so good. It's so fucking good.
Yes.
I would like to commend
I do love that Solange song.
Oh, that song's so good.
Earthquake's perfect.
Yeah. Earthquake, of course. I would like to commend us for getting like 40 minutes in the podcast without rapping any bars yet. That takes real great job, everyone.
That was restraint for this shit.
I've been withholding the Carti impression for way too long. I'm going to say that.
So you waited for this episode to drop your Carti impression after years of fandom?
Nah, people have definitely heard it. There you go.
Impression to do.
Hey, that wasn't bad. That was good.
The rest of this in Carti baby voice.
Oh man. But I mean, yeah, so other than those those big 3 songs are kind of like the jumping off point. So do you, of those 3, like, do you guys have so you're all team Pissy Pamper as number 1?
I'm not, honestly.
Door like Kid Cudi?
Fucking
I'm going to call it Molly for now.
Yeah, I would no, I mean, it's really hard, but no, I think Pissy Pamper. Why the fuck do we always have to call it Pissy Pamper? Like, I think it's because
we can call it Kid Cudi. We can call it Kid Cudi.
I led off the episode with calling it the other title, the right title.
I know, but it's called that in the parenthetical. And whenever you downloaded it back in the day, it was called that parentheses Kid Cudi. And like, there's no reason for it to be called that in the song. Carti says Kid Cudi in his verse. He doesn't say anything. The only reason I thought it was called Pissy Pamper is because he's kind of using the baby voice. So it's like maybe Carti has a pissy pamper. That's why he's rapping.
That's one way to look at it. I didn't think that.
It's a hilariously dumb title.
I think it's a nudie title. I think 100%.
Yeah, that tracks. That tracks.
I'm gonna pick Molly/not real, whatever we're gonna call it. I'm just gonna call it Molly for now. That's how
Even
I've
though
always known it.
we hardly have any good like quality versions of it.
I could send you one if you need it. I have a few.
You have a few? Well, once again, this has happened a bunch of times this podcast the last 6 months. Someone has told me they have a good version of a song and they send it to me. So bless up. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm gonna send you that after this.
I will be ready for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you that after this because that did leak, not like CDQ, but at the very least 128.
I've heard it. I heard it in like various versions that were like pretty good, but the problem is they get deleted. So
yeah, there's a lot of like remixes as well, but I'm talking about the original version because to me that's like it's so heavenly. It feels like flying through the sky, like a pink sky. It's so beautiful.
See, I don't mind how shitty it sounds because I feel like there's certain tracks on here where there's like a raggedness to his voice. Like I'm thinking about, and this is actually on like the extended one, I think. So I don't know if everybody's heard it. The Young Thug Ain't Rockin' Gold is another one where there's just like an edginess to his vocal mixing that's not as smooth as some of it. So I didn't really mind how shitty his vocals like mixing is. It really is, but it doesn't matter because I think one of the things that defines the initial run on here is how smooth the vocal, especially when the Migos guys are on here. Like they have very smooth flows with each other. It's just very liquid. But then there is stuff that's like a lot more edgy, which I think does kind of presage or predict the whole Lotta Red like approach, where he was doing a lot more jumpy, nervous, edgy type vocal experimentation.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Leaning into that on this.
One song that I think exemplifies that is I probably don't have the same compilation, but it's called Cash Shit. I don't know if you guys have that one, but it's a bit more hardcore, I guess, a bit more aggressive.
Oh, I've heard that, I think, but it's not on my edition.
I think that's on like one of the really expanded ones. I can't. Although I feel like I know that him saying that on something, it also sounds like something he might have said as an ad-lib noise at some point on another song.
Yeah, it's got like a really heavy bass. It kind of has shaky mixing, but it just adds to it. It's really hard. I'll send that one over as well.
Definitely. Anything you want to post in the Discord, please do.
We are pro saving lost media here.
File sharing,
yeah. So I was going to say, as we're getting into discussion, so John, I believe you have this as a 5 as well, at least when I stalked your ratings last.
Very rare.
Is it your favorite like Carti thing? Because it's kind of tough because obviously it's a bootleg, it's an era of music. But is this like your go-to, like your go-to favorite?
So I didn't make it through all of it again, the expanded one this time, but I was listening to it over the last few days. And I wrote a little entry about this in my log, but basically the 5-star is more, not necessarily because like I think every song here is perfect or that I think, it's his best thing front to back per se. It's more so like a rating that it's kind of emblematic of like my favorite of his artistic eras.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I feel really similarly about it actually. I kind of I definitely have it as a 5, and I have it as a 5 mainly because of like, it's gonna sound stupid, but like what it represents in a way. Because
it's a bit of a symbolic rating for me too, even though I think the music is fucking great.
The actual track list of the Wanna Rate Your Music is like kind of a mess. I think you could whittle it down and have like definitely something that could really contest with his actual albums. And I think if you did do that, I also would say it's probably my favorite of his eras. There's something really special about like the vocal inflections. As much as I love like new stuff and the stuff before, I don't know, this had more of a like heavenly vibe in a way, like some songs like Pop Bottles and
it's really
RPMs as well.
It's really a synthesis of his going even all the way back to the early Plug stuff to the Dilates and the self-titled and this kind of hybrid era he was in. It's really a culmination of all those things. And I know you said it's messy. Fair, definitely a fair assessment to level at it, especially because you have stuff like No Charm on here, which was recorded in like 2017.
26, yeah. Some of these songs,
amazing, but amazing song. Like once again, we're in this thing where it's like valid, but also I don't care. Like that.
No, I don't care. Don't get me wrong. I don't care either, because I would say Whole Lotta Red is a mess, but I think that's like why it's so good in a way.
I actually, when we get to the Whole Lotta Red discussion, I can make a better case, or we collectively make a better case for it. I think Whole Lotta Red's actually pretty well assembled.
Oh, front to back, absolutely.
I think there's definitely like the first half is distinctly a certain way, and the back half.
Well, I feel like the way Whole Lotta Red is well assembled is that it was definitely supposed to be one album. It ended up being two albums smooshed together, and the fact that with Kanye coming in at the end to kind of try and scrape shit in his own like image, like clout chase or whatever. You have all these disparate things happening, and yet it still ends up being a cohesive statement with like definite like I feel like it's very cohesive front to back. It doesn't feel thrown together to me at all, given how many eras are encapsulated in it, which is at least two separate distinct sessions with a lot of people with their hands in it. And Carti being a very schizophrenic, moody type of artist, I would not call it thrown together. I have to kind of strongly push back on that.
Yeah, I'll reword what I said. I don't want to say, I don't mean like thrown together. I guess it's more like erratic, but I feel like that's the character of the album.
I would agree with erratic.
Yeah.
Emotionally erratic, and also like by nature of all those things I said, erratic's better. Yeah.
Yeah. The main thing I meant about
you there, like my bad.
The main thing I meant about the bootleg being a mess is that some of this stuff is like Caleb said, some of these songs are 2016. Some of them are self-titled, so it's not like a full encapsulation of what Whole Lotta Red could have been. A lot of it is. But it's more so like these are things that were leaking this year, I guess. But it's still great. So
I see this bootleg as like kind of like, you know, like his final swan songs, like his, I guess, cloud rap era, if you want to define it that way.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's definitely more than any other project, I think, first and foremost, like a cloud rap record with then other stuff secondary, I feel like. I mean, the beat, it has some of my favorite production on this.
Yeah. Going back through this, like I couldn't tell you like who produced like every song. Like obviously, you have some of the easily recognizable ones, but I actually had to go back through the tracker and like kind of see like, oh, who produced what.
I mean, there's a lot of Pierre on here, but like it's a testament to Pierre that you can't tell that. I feel like what I love about this, I like you guys keep saying cloud rap stuff, because what I love about it, and it reminds me of just like 2012, 2013, like ASAP, Underachievers, Main Attractions, all that type of stuff. But and like In Abundance was going at that too. But it feels like this is Carti with his current, at that time, contemporary vocal approach of just being able to do whatever over that sort of production and just willing to take these vocal chances over it. So he's not at all imitating anybody. He's just himself. Like you'll have something like, I think Pit Stop is the closest that comes to somebody else's lane. Pit Stop feels a little bit like Keith, but not so much like he's vocally imitating anybody, just more like it kind of sounds like something Keith would do in terms of song structure. And he has the Migos stuff, but that just feels like a natural collaboration as opposed to trying to like, you know, Drake style Dracula somebody. That's it.
Purchase your tracks today.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that.
I love that.
Pretty sure that's a stolen beat from Milan Makes Beats. It also samples Undertale. So some fun facts for today.
Yeah, that purchase your tracks today thing. Which let me tell you, what was another song that Milan Makes Beats did? Because when I heard that first in like another plug artist or whoever, I almost lost my mind because I was like, "Oh shit, that's where I know that from."
That's from.
I have a version without the tag if you want.
First Vampire Life.
Of course.
I recognize it from listening to Space Ghost Perp.
Yeah, that's so funny, but yeah, I mean, just like, I mean, I've plenty to say about any song on here because I think it's funny. So Pat brought up the Migos stuff. So there are a couple songs on here that are literally like released songs on other records from that year. So the Gunna song, the Same Young is on Dripper Down. Was it 3? Whatever one that was. The one with him underwater. Mm-hmm. Then you had the Nav song was on the
Mustard compilation.
The Mustard compilation, right. And then there was 100 Racks, which was on the Quality Control Behemoth like compilation.
I'm going to assume that was probably the only good thing on there, by the way. We have a certain person's list who listened to every Quality Control song on there, and you can read every entry on it where he's just like, this group is trash. Who keeps letting people make this shit? Fuck 'em.
I remember it not being as bad as RYM says, because RYM was like predisposed to hating it, but it's also it was mid. It was mid. it was too long, and I remember a couple of songs from it, but yeah, probably these days did not age well. Probably not very good. But yeah, but 100 Racks, people were anticipating that too, because once they saw Carti was on it, oh my god, a Carti feature, like, you know.
Carti, it's also Pierre and Metro both on the track, and there's a beat switch that's really cool where you can feel like you can hear the beat switch between one producer and another. So
I also neglected that Switching Lanes now is an official song. At the time it wasn't, but now it is. New version.
It's insane that leaked like nearly 2 years ahead.
I'm glad he put it on a thing. I'm glad he put it on the album. It was nice that it was the intro. The grandma was still there. Like, it was great.
The most pure born thing ever is the heartfelt grandma voicemail.
Baby, give me brain.
Baby, give me brain.
And you know what's so funny? That song is so warm and melodic, and like, this is the wrong word, but like when Carti says like AOPA, like that's my slut, like it's like heartwarming. It's very heartwarming. Like it's very like
that might
uplifting, and it has
song.
that warmth and that vibe to it. It's perfect summer song. But it's just hilarious how he goes from the grandma intro to that.
It's so good. This whole era project really is like, it gives me a summery feeling. Like I played a lot of these songs in my car on like summer afternoons and stuff with friends. So a lot of memories are attached to this.
On the self-titled episode, we talked about how warm it was, and this is exactly the same thing for me. Yeah, this is like
and just like it was so fun getting to show people these songs who otherwise wouldn't have found them as well, and kind of spreading the word of like Carti's mysterious like secret album that the world, like most of the world, didn't get to hear around the time. That was really fun.
Is this the last good Travis Scott contribution to music? Also,
that song is not that good.
There was no way to pause it. There was no way to pause the Family Guy.
That was fucking
that line
fire.
Is iconic.
That was fucking fire.
That's an iconic line.
That's all I took from that song, though. It sounds like an Astroworld throwaway.
I think it was supposed to be.
Probably.
Not necessarily in a good way that reflects well on him, but yeah, it's iconic in its own way.
Yeah. Yeah, watching Family Guy, No Way to Pause It is up there with Family Guy on Peter. Just
it's 4 and a 4 and a 2 liter.
I was at my lowest. No Peter Griffin.
True.
Hard.
Them conscious Seth MacFarlane bars. Shout out to new official kicking back of the podcast, Denzel Curry.
Shout out to Doo-Wop Kane.
Shout out, of course, with the Peter Griffin cover art or the Brian Griffin cover art.
The Family Guy cover art. Oh, that's fucking hard, dude.
So funny. What else? I mean, just on that front half, so talking about front half songs. I mean, Pop Bottles is amazing.
Yes, that like what Patrique said. That's another like totally cloud rap song, 100%. And it's not really something you hear from him nowadays. So these are really, really cool insights to what could have been.
Yeah, one of the things I like you guys said, like you're all talking about how it's a summer album, and that's a great season to put to it, because one of the things I was thinking about listening to it, like this is something I had since about when it came out that I never really listened to front to back. I would just pick what I liked out of it, more or less. And listening to it front to back, hearing these productions just one after the other, the palette that I got off of it was just like nocturnal but bright, like, you know, being outside in the summertime and just being surrounded by like nice warm lights, like either at a beach or just like neon lights, I guess, because he invokes neon on stuff. It just felt like bright at night in a pleasing sort of way, not abrasive, just good, chill.
Yeah, it's light.
And even the vocal performances, even when they're loud, they're not abrasive. They're melodic. Like his melodies are able to make, like on a whole lot of Red, it can get pretty intense, I would say.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a lot lighter. That's why even something like At May, the original, maybe not lead single from Lotta Red, like would fit on this most definitely because it's doing.
At May and Beano are the only two things on Whole Lotta Red that really feel like they came from this, like, you know.
Yeah. Maybe
that.
I mean Place, right? But that would be
Place is from this era, yeah.
But that
like,
would be it.
Are Made, Stop Breathing, like that sort of stuff.
So different.
Even the stuff in the back half that is within a stone's throw of this doesn't sound like it was like this.
I think maybe I Love You, I Hate You. Maybe it's just the pure
to me, that's
production.
still dark. That's still darker though.
Lyrically, it's darker. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it just feels a little more wintry to me than this. But I might be projecting like
paranoia to his vocals on that than here. Like he's so much more dark in his headspace and the mix. Like I hate to say the mixing, but I feel like that album is like more claustrophobic. Like if this is what we're going to get, it felt more airy versus claustrophobia, and that's built for a mosh pit. This is built for a festival crowd, like an outdoor festival.
Yeah,
you're right.
He's not leaning into the vampire stuff yet.
This Carti is like he's kind of relaxed. I want to say. I feel like Carti, he's got demons, you know. Something's going on there.
It's more like antic and like you said, erratic earlier.
Yeah.
Patrick, you had a comment, and I'm bringing this to air just because I think you said in the Discord, but you were like, this run of songs is great, and maybe, I'm paraphrasing, like, maybe Red on Red stops that or whatever, and I was like, whoa, Red on Red.
I said that I had a little extra time, heavy quotation marks, and not really as much as I would have liked, but still to listen to some other stuff. I gave Red on Red another shot. I like it better. I don't think it ruins the vibe, although I think that it's the first less than essentially perfect song in that run. Like if I was actually doing track ratings, like 5.5, like 4.75, 5.5, like I would, Red on Red's like a bit rambly, I would say. Like it starts off perfect, and I don't think it goes anywhere, but does it have to?
I love that song. I think the way you said rambly, I think actually adds to it. It just flows. He kind of just keeps going and going and going. And
the second verse is a lot longer than the first verse. Yeah,
nice way. So but then again, like I guess you do kind of need a bit of a breather because Legroom Bust Down's a little more intense than Legroom. But I think that you just kind of need something that does that. It's like a bit of a release valve. So I say it doesn't really ruin it. No, it doesn't ruin the run. I take that back.
I mean, I love Pit Stop, but I think like the 4+ minute songs are kind of pushing.
Okay, Pit Stop is a weird case of like we on the Currency episode a little while back. We talked about the super extended outros, which we think were a mixing error, which very likely were a mixing error that they just said, okay, so you can roll up another one. But yeah, Pit Stop kind of, especially because there's a weird clipped part. I don't know if it's in your version. Like there's a weird part where it literally feels like it clips and loops in mine. Like at like the 3-minute part where it feels like it.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
I think that song it's an open verse, so it was supposed to have another verse or something, but it was left unfinished. I had to guess.
And that is actually a good. Now this wasn't on the original, but it was on the like extended, I think. But I have the. Bodega, you might have it too. I have the 10-minute Athena freestyle, even though it's 3 different songs.
I need to hear that shit. All right.
Okay. I'll put it in the Discord, Pat. I'll send it to you, regardless. It is technically three different versions, and it leaked a couple years ago, right? Because that's when I heard it the first time. But I love that song, and that song is like, I mean, obviously the joke is like there's like Molly Raw tags the entire fucking like length of the song, but. Being at 3 different versions, if you play the 10-minute version in full, it's literally just like a 10-minute freestyle. Like he's just going and going and going over this beautiful, gorgeous beat. And he's kind of just like, he's rapping, but it almost is like he's like scat singing a little bit. Like,
if you actually gone around and spoke with your friends in freestyle for 10 minutes, about 9.5 minutes of those are unusual.
Well, that's the thing. It's not really, it has no flow as like a song, but for whatever reason, there are distinct parts to it. You can kind of tell. And when it ends, I'm like, God damn, that was so good. I have to play it again. Like it ends in such a beautiful way. But you know what I'm talking about? Like
I haven't heard it in a long time.
Oh, you haven't heard it in a while?
Revisit it.
I'll have to send it and I'll at you guys and to see what your general takes are. I wouldn't blame anyone if they were like, this is annoying. But also, to me, I was like, yes, I love it. Give me more.
That though, because one of the things that really appealed to me about this tape overall, it has kind of a same appeal as like old screw tapes, where it's like even if it's not great, it flows together so like even the portions that aren't great, everything flows together so well that like the rapping wise, I would say is not great. Like I can excuse any parts that vocally aren't great because of the flow, and the instrumentals are so perfect and languid and just that chill vibe to everything. So when you talked about the freestyle, it reminded me of like the freestyles on screw tapes. They're just like, we're just going to let people cook. Like, we're just going to let Fat Pat freestyle 8 minutes about whatever the fuck because it sounds good because the instrument is so perfect. The vibe is so good. And that's why the one thing that keeps me from maybe tenning this is that dead smack in the fucking middle of no matter what version you have, unless they for some reason put these songs not next to each other, which I have not found a version that doesn't. We have Baguettes in the Face and Don't Worry About Me. And Baguettes is a song I like, but it's an outlier, and the features are and Don't Worry About Me, Wiz Khalifa fucking sucks and needs to go away.
So Baguettes does not fit this at all. It's that never leaked. I think they just put it.
It comes after 3 of the best songs on the whole thing, if not more. Like it's very interesting of how it goes, but yeah, go ahead. I steamrolled your point. My apologies.
No, you're good. It's just the Latin inspired beat is definitely an outlier, and I think Carti's part is really catchy on it. But I don't care for A Boogie, to be honest. As for Don't Worry, Wiz's verse is kind of cringe. I'll be real, but I really like Carti's hook, and it kind of reminds me of like V2 Whole Lotta Red, like Atme era in the production and his voice.
Yeah, it was like the old coupe outside. Like it's a cool song, but Wiz hurts. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's kind of corny.
I mean, these songs are sandwiched in between Monday Through Sunday and No Charm. Like,
okay, we need to talk about
didn't
Monday
have a chance.
Monday Through Sunday is on some days my favorite Carti song. This
is an easy top 10 Carti leak. It's actually beautiful. Him and Gunna's chemistry are just incredible. I love how their verses like flow into each other seamlessly. Like there's no break between it.
They're like intersecting, yeah.
Yeah, it's like fast paced. I always like kind of picture myself like speeding down on a summer day to this song.
It's like
it really blew me away on this listen.
It's incredible. So when it leaked in the moment, I had only heard. I mean, I instantly became obsessed with it. That was one that I heard early. Some of these songs I hadn't heard when they leaked, like I alluded to earlier. But this one I heard in the moment because I think a friend sent it to me, and at this time I wasn't super familiar. I was familiar with Working on Dying, but I wasn't like, tapped in with Tread and everything. This is 2019, so I wouldn't be tapped in with Tread until like probably 4 to 6 months later. But yeah, this was like a crazy song, and obviously you listen to it now and it's very recognizable. Like the tag, you can hear Forza's tag, like it's very recognizable, and it is like a perfect song. I love the hook. I love their verses. The way it ends, it feels like a 100% like fully stamped like album centerpiece type song that never made an album, and that just kind of makes me sad because that would have been really cool. But one thing it's also good for, and I've said this before on the pod about certain songs, I've had this project just downloaded in my like library forever on my phone. Well, this song has definitely been an alarm for me, like waking up like plenty of times. Like hundreds of times. I would say hundreds of times.
Does that hurt it for you?
No, actually. And Patrick, you've asked me this before, where you've like, I think I mentioned years and years ago, like, oh, this Dilla song woke me up, like, before. But to me, if I wake up to something and it's, like, very recognizable, I'm, like, instantly up. I won't, like, hit snooze. Like, I'll be ready. And, it's better to wake up to that than, like, an annoying thing, right?
See,
I never thought about it that way.
We had this discussion before on the alarm thing. Is I want to wake up to something that's, like, either Well, it's got to be super hype, but it's got to be like loud enough that it jars me, or it just has to be jarring ass noise. Like the most effective, good artist thing I ever woke up to, I used it for years, was a song called Carpool Dummy by Gaslamp Killer. And my wife complained that it sounded like dentists and construction workers having a fight outside the apartment. So.
Well, the thing about, and full disclosure, I've used a couple other songs here. Most notably like Back Up. Maybe like one more that I'm forgetting about. But the thing about these songs is like they're loud enough, but they kind of like ease you into it, so I'm not getting like beaten over the head. Now I understand like your method, Patrick, is very effective. For me, for whatever reason, I've been able to wake up if there's like enough noise and I can pick it out, I guess. So, yeah, there's some insight into whatever. Like there you go, listeners. You're getting early morning alarm insight.
I've always been too afraid to put a song I like because I feel like it's going to become obnoxious to me, or kind of give me like weird PTSD when I hear it normally. Like, for example,
I'm scared of ruining songs like that.
Yeah, like for example, I remember there's a ring. I work at like a tech service desk, and we use like a Cisco phone setup, right? So that ringtone, whenever I hear it, oh my god, it like makes me perk up in a weird way. So I've always been afraid of like that happening to one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, I mean, I acknowledge I'm a very strange person. We've kind of gone over that in the pod previously, so
I respect it. It's cool.
No, I'll hold it. But yeah, just that song Monday Through Sunday like really, really speaks to me, and yeah, I mean, blew me away, especially
it's just revisiting. So energetic, so fun.
Yeah, every revisit, it really sticks with me, and that whole run. I mean, Hellcat right after. His second verse, the way he gets all like raspy and yelpy on it, like that's so fucking cool.
They did 7 takes on that too. That was apparently a song he felt really strongly about, and then never did anything with. Like going by the tracker, it's 7 takes.
Yeah, there's a lot of songs where he has so many different versions. You could really kind of see his craft or his like perfectionist sort of a view on things from that.
Which is why it's funny that people always give him so much shit for being like, he doesn't do anything. A low effort artist. He doesn't rap this. He is not a low effort artist.
Yeah, no, crazy take.
Yeah.
I'd like to see these people go. I was going to do a whole Lotta Red styled what ad-lib, but I decided against it.
I mean, we already have,
you know what this reminds me of is when, and maybe John and Bodega you would know, but that clip that was on Twitter, it surfaced maybe a month or two ago, and it was like Yeat's like recording process or whatever, and it was just like, but it was raw, like no auto-tune, nothing. You couldn't hear the music. It was just like him, and he was like yelling and growling and doing ad-libs and weird shit, like shit in a Yeat song that wasn't cleaned up, and people were like, "This is trash. This is ass." Like I'm like, this is a cool window into the creative process. I like it, like. Yeah, so that's kind of like this. Like reminds me of all the
definitely. Yeah, no, I know the clip.
What was that, John? I didn't get it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
isolated vocal tracks like in any genre can sound fucking ridiculous and embarrassing. Like I remember like hearing one from like Van Halen where there's like no studio music in the back and it just sounds fucking insane.
Yeah, I mean,
it's cool to hear, and I think artists. I almost said cartists. Artists like Yeat and Carti are like really special because of their like animal sounds sometimes. Like I love it personally.
It is definitely a post Young Thug world.
Yes.
Like, where that is more commonplace and whatnot. I think John, you mentioned No Charm. Is that like that one of your favorites? Is like because that one, I mean, not quite for me, but it like almost can go toe to toe with Location. Like it's damn good.
Considered a sequel to Location, right? Like in a lot of ways, like
it's basically like hand in hand with that song.
It's got to be the same session. It's really good. It has a sample of I believe Orbital Halicon. I don't know how to say that.
Halcyon.
Yeah, my bad. So which I think is kind of like a sort of an ambient track.
Dude, there's one song on here, and I don't know if it's on the fucking main or extended, that sounds like fucking rap autocur, and I can't remember what fucking beat it is. That like I could not think of anyone else except for maybe like Billy Woods who would rap over that shit. Like, oh, god damn it.
Is it Kids maybe?
I mean, there are a few shorter things on here. Kids is like very minimalist. No, Kids is on every edition. It's very early.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What do you think it was like Goku autograph?
I'm thinking
Goku is asthma. My bad. Wrong.
Woe is kind of like, I don't know. Woe was Woe was a quote unquote single. What the fuck was it? I'm looking through the track list here.
I'm thinking of the back half because there's a lot of like.
Woe was the closest thing to think of, honestly. Which it's Woe or Skeleton maybe.
Well, Skeleton is a classic fan favorite, at least as far as I know.
But I don't think that does.
Skeleton is pretty. I mean, this is terrible. Skeleton is pretty skeletal, and it's yeah, that's awful. I can have that, but
it's like really busy and electronic, and like I mean, that's the lamest, most general descriptor I can think of for stuff. I mean, there is certain stuff on here though, like. I mean, I guess one of these has a version of LSD that goes really long. The one I had only has like a 1:15 version of LSD. Kids is 2 minutes. Obviously, the Whole Lotta Red outro, which I figure we're all going to have a lot to say about. It's like 1:15. Like there are certain songs on here that are like more like moody. You would say they're unfinished thoughts, but they're actually just like complete statements that are just like there's stuff like most of it here is like brighter and up tempo, but then there's like there's a few songs that I think are moody, shorter, and kind of hint a little more at the I don't want to say sonic direction of Whole Lotta Red so much as the emotional direction of Whole Lotta Red.
Yeah. I mean that's a really good way of putting it. I mean you don't get songs like Buffy the Body on Whole Lotta Red, so I'm really glad that we have them in this capacity, even if they never saw like an official release. Because holy fuck, that beat! Like,
on my personal like compilation I made back in the day, Buffy is my outro. I think it works really well.
The way it rides out, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how often you've listened to the. I don't know how often you've listened to the podcast Bodega before, but I mean, you know me. If there's one thing I've said many times, I love a beat that rides out. You know, that's like a classic Caleb cliche.
Exactly, the way it rides out. Also, just how
the beat I was thinking of was Forgiato. By the way, I'm pretty sure the beat I was thinking of was Forgiato.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I could not find that song for the life of me.
It's really fucking dark and bassy and busy.
Oh yeah. It kind of sounds. That is a very Keith esque. I think his vocal on that.
I found a 2014 song called Forgiato, but it can't be the same one. I don't think.
No, that is not the same one.
Okay.
Yeah, I might have it. I don't know. Let me do some searching. See if I have it on like my music library, but I'd have to do some digging somewhere. But yeah. Buffy's amazing.
Yeah, Buffy is really cool and bright, and then and I think the way R.I.P. Yams goes into a whole lot of neon for the that little song. That's the thing I love about this too, is for something fan made. I don't know if it was one person or like a collective thing on Reddit or whatever. There are like little stretches on this, like the stretch you were mentioning, and I think Buffy the Body through to Autograph is amazing too. Actually, honestly, no.
Yeah, they're little like perfect 5-star stretches.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, no charm through to Autograph too. Really, if you got rid of fucking baguettes and Don't Worry, you could just have like an incredible marathon stretch. But I guess that's why you have those two there. They're like a little bit of an interlude of like feature, which is fine, I suppose.
It was just like it's definitely like time period.
It's time period stuff. Who's doing it, and like again, I see why you have Nav and a Boogie on there, even if it's not for me. And Wiz, whatever. But I mean, stuff, and it's like Yachty. Like Wiz and Yachty are a little similar in that they're like broke big, had to go back to regional stuff, and it feels less cool. Well, it did at least. I don't know if Yachty's going to keep trying to do this because he doesn't do rap music anymore, but it felt less corny when Yachty would do. Like obviously he did all the stuff putting on like the Michigan Boy, but like I felt like I mean, even stuff like where Wiz was on like the fucking Keith album in 2012. Like that felt so fucking awkward.
Yeah, I have to say I don't really like the features on. Oh god, this is kind of a crazy take, but the features on Hate Being Sober clash so hard with like everything else in the album. It doesn't ruin it for me.
That's definitely true, but to me, there's like a little bit of charm in that. But I hear you. Like you're right. I just find a little bit of charm in that, even though it totally is like train screeching to a halt features. Yeah,
I think it's like the 2012 cheesy charm of like get all the big rappers on one song, guys.
Yeah, it's awesome. Still like the industry meddling in an up and comer. Yeah.
But it's just 100%. They don't have. I don't know. Keith is just way more raw than those two.
Yeah, it's like all these big rappers who have never met before in a room, man. Talk about how all the drugs they do that they've never done with each other and never would.
Yeah, it's like a DJ Khaled directed kind of director's cut of that song.
Seriously.
But
going back to our discussion.
Sorry.
I don't know how we forgot Chief Keef as like an essential leak artist.
That's true.
I mean, he has like how many like mixtapes that are just like the leaks?
Jesus, so fucking many.
He's got like 80 track mixtapes for every year of leaks.
Yeah,
also, Young
Keith
Thug.
Like leaks from his.
Keith was foundational for Carti, obviously.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our Keith episodes are going to be even more non-linear than our Carti episodes.
Yes, double the length. Every mixtape, we're gonna get into like, okay, so like what production tag or DJ drop on every Chicago drill artist is the best?
Right. Our fucking our Carti episodes are Tarantino. Our Keith episodes are gonna be like A Wrinkle in Time. So.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Really like the artistic choices in this podcast.
Yeah, right. We're really high art. The Keith episodes are going to be like our Bellator, like fucking movies, Satan Tango of podcasting.
But yeah, going back to the project, I really want to talk about RIP-Yams. That song, that song is wet.
Like it is. It's very watery. Yeah, yes. It has kind of a.
Like the way he sounds on the mic is wet. The way he enunciates.
Yes, exactly.
Fucking moist.
Yeah, there's a lot of saliva on that mic. Yeah. It is but it's so good. I think it's
what does he mean by that? No.
I think it's one of Carti's like most creative songs. It's so out there. I think every line is so quotable too.
Yeah. I got Prada on my ass.
Yes, I got slimes that put it fast.
The impression's pretty good.
Thank you.
It's pretty good. Maybe it's because I could do a terrible impression, so I'm gassing it too much. But
I was eating it in the kitchen the other night while doing dishes, and I think my wife was a little scared.
Oh yeah.
Well, that always gets into like who you can play some shit around. And John, I always laugh because I'm like, you listen to so much like stuff. And I feel like your tastes are so much different from your wife that what is the overlap?
That's yeah. It's
actually she really loves Carti's music. Like we spent a lot of time listening to Dial It like on car rides like to and from Minneapolis. Like we probably listened to Poke It Out like I don't know hundreds of times.
Boy, common W right there.
Yeah, for real. But just like. I remember my friends used to say I have Carti tics whenever I would break out into song when he was on. But
I mean, just the fact you talk about every line being quotable, like more than ever on that song. Just the way that it bounces, and even it has like, and Pat and I have talked about this before. Every line is a hook in a way that is. Then you get to the actual hook, and you're like, "Holy shit! How did it get better? Like, how did it actually get better?" I imagine, yeah.
This is another one that this was actually confirmed on a whole lot of Red track list at one point. There was an interview, I forgot who he did it with, but I read it when it came out, and they described this song like to a T. Like they call it like an 8-bit beat. and he's like really enunciating his words in a spitty way. So this one was like, I mean, this is clearly a finished song. Kind of like Monday through Sunday. You could tell this is like ready for showtime.
The ideal version of the song is what we got on this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, like, I mean, R.I.P. Vivian Westwood. You know, shout out.
True.
It was originally supposed to be called Vivian Westwood, right?
Yeah, you're right. That is what it's called.
Yeah. So
the thing is, I have all these old titles, but you know, my Scrabbles, man, my Last FM, can't lose them.
Shout out to Last FM. Like, can you be fucking better at your job? Like,
sounds kind of moody.
2007. Like,
I have never, and you know what? I tried to use Last FM like 8-9 years ago, and it just never clicked for me. So then I've never used it.
Don't bother.
Yeah, no, I kind of just let it ride, but it breaks a lot, so I have to reset it.
Things I've asked our fan base to do is make a bunch of T-shirts. They're not going to do that. Things I'm going to also ask them to do is make a better like scrobbling app than Last FM. Do that too, because no one else has done that, and that would actually be a more useful use of your time. So
that's true. The worst. It's really funny if you go on Last FM and you listen to Lucky. It displays as a Swedish pop artist known as Lucky twice for some reason, despite the fact that their names are spelled completely differently and are different.
A Swedish Chicago rapper, the exact same thing.
That's going to be hot. Like, I bet we could probably get Swedish drill approved in RYM before Dark Trap.
Oh, we could come up with a genre, and one of us could do a song in it, like on the fly, and it could get approved quicker than some of the shit.
I was shocked to see Rage or Plug and B accepted.
Santurce Masterclass, I fear.
Those lists are really godsend.
Crazy. It's like literally like an artifact, but yeah. I mean, we talked about songs that like ride out perfectly. Like you mentioned, Buffy. Dropped Out is another one. I feel like Dropped Out just. I mean,
I go simple. Bryson Tiller, dude.
Yeah.
That might be the best line on the tape, actually. That's
really good.
Shawty wanna kill her. Great song. Love his little like inflections and like playful, you know, almost banter on it.
He's lyrical because he's charismatic. I think that's what like the rap critic types of the world don't get is like if you have a good flow and you're charismatic, you don't need to be bar son.
Well, there's a lot that the rap critic doesn't get for sure.
Well, I mean, just on a general fundamental level of why this sort of rapper works. And it always has worked since the dawn of the fucking genre.
Yeah, personalities
were not wrong.
Rap critic is more worried about if the lyric before this one is related
to the next one. Exactly.
Yeah, which what is that fucking mentality? I'm sorry. What's so stupid? When are we doing a Master Artisan episode?
It's going to be a 3-parter with Master Artisan, Eminem, and Gone, or whatever.
With a special, like, NF interlude.
Oh, boy.
I have never heard an NF song.
Me neither.
I think I've heard, like, 2, and that was enough.
I've never knowingly heard one.
That was enough NF for me.
I'll amend that. If I've heard one, I haven't known it, but...
Same. I'm going to keep avoiding it.
No, you guys are right. You're all right, and you should say it.
I have favorited several Legends reviews where he really shits on the guy. Those are my favorite Legends reviews.
This song is a Christian rap song over a bad beat. Oh shit!
They're really whack.
On NF's 28th sophomore EP.
He does not level up.
No, it is genuinely funny when Legends doesn't like something because he takes the same template and it just like twists the knife and it's like does something in a whack way over a dumb beat.
Yeah, I mean,
he has such a formula for his reviews that they're really entertaining for some reason.
The templatizing.
It's like Mad Libs.
When is somebody just gonna chat GPT and match like review for?
I think the best thing that somebody said is like when my Cozart review was like an AI generated Legends review. This is the highest compliment I've ever gotten for any of my writing.
I'm literally saluting as we speak.
I have to amend
go
my
ahead.
statement. I rated a NF song "Let You Down" 1 star in 2018.
All right.
There you go. You were way ahead of the curve on NF. Look at you, being a hater early.
I did not know it was to like 2020. I think I don't know. So yeah.
RYM user lookAghost woke up real early today to be a hater.
I think that's when he was still getting beats from like beat plugs and working on dying and stuff too. That's pretty ahead of its time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's is One Day the best? Or sorry, not the best. The most hopeful Carti song.
It's very motivational.
One Day, pretty iconic. I feel like, just in terms of the like, it's uplifting nature, and also just like it feels unique in the Carti catalog. Of other beautiful Carti songs don't usually revolve around such like a hopeful center.
That's true. I always think like, I guess like motivational, inspirational rap. I know it can be kind of corny, but it's a tried and true archetype. You know, it's nice. So it is a unique song in his catalog for that reason. I really like it. I could tell it's self-titled era too by the beat and his voice.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. It sounds like the guy that made Magnolia or Location or et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
It's a super good song.
Yeah. I think of the collaborations between him and Offset on this version, there are 3 of them as far as I know, and I think Boulder Crest is probably my favorite, but Backup is like 1B, like at worst. I mean, they're all great.
Boulder Crest is the most known one.
Yeah, Boulder Crest is amazing.
I just love the way they go at that. That's such a minimal beat. That's like it's like somehow menacing, but also upbeat in a way, I think.
Yeah, that beat, it sounds like haunted. It's like in a Luigi's Mansion way. Like it's goofy haunted. It's really good.
Right. Exactly.
It's ghostly.
Yeah, but it's a menacing beat that they go out with an energy that makes it feel upbeat, sort of. And I feel like that's the sort of energy you got out of Migos at their best back in the day. Like where they would take like stuff, they would make threats upbeat. Like it was a different sort of comical threat than you got out of 3-6. It was the same sort of energy in a different presentation, like completely different packaging. Like I don't know if that's
I get what you mean,
but yeah.
Yeah, that song was actually produced by Murda Beats, which is interesting.
Yeah, back when Murda Beats was like relevant. Has long since end.
I'm kind of glad his tag isn't on there though.
Oh yeah, it would have been glaring, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't like that one.
It would have been glaring, yeah. But yeah, Backup is amazing. Like the way I mentioned earlier, that's another one that I've used in Alarm before, just because like it's very propulsive. Like I love the way they come on and they just kind of like play off each other. And I've definitely walked around or drove around or did anything around and been like, back up, like with ferocity, like absolutely. So it's another corny anecdote for you all, but I've definitely.
It's not corny. It's being yourself.
Right, be you, like Carti tweeted that one time, right?
Yep.
But I mean, Cancun is Cancun. Like, I mean, like, is there anything we have to say about Cancun? Like, it's beautiful. It should have been on an official.
Shout out Indian version.
I was literally gonna mention that. What is up with that?
Oh my god.
Parentheses Indian version. When I saw that, I was like,
yeah, I fucking cackled.
That is hilarious.
Cancun, it's classic. It's hard to even say anything about it. It's just so definitive. It's just like,
yeah. I mean, just the beat is so smooth. It's maybe the smoothest beat on here. Like it's just, and of this whole era, and the way he just hops on it, like that should have been a massive hit. And I'm convinced that if it dropped, it would have officially.
I think that song would have been a hit. I think Kid Cudi as well.
A huge hit, yeah. Like, And
have you guys heard the Indian version or whatever that's on the extended?
Yeah, we were just talking.
Yeah, we mentioned.
Sorry, I stepped away for a second. That's why.
No, you're good. We were joking about shout out Indian version. Oh my god.
Yeah, that was one of the things I tried to fit in at the very end of my listening, and I'm like, oh, that was a choice.
Yeah,
kind of catchy. I don't know. I don't hate it. It's very silly.
I didn't get around to it on this listen through.
You know what?
I will. There's
a Sega Genesis edit version of Cancun Bodega. Do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe
I do. Yeah.
Yes, the one in the beginning where it's like the Sega, and then it goes into the.
Did you see? Speaking of J Electronic, did you see he tweeted at Playboi Carti, "Let me get on that Cancun Sega remix."
I didn't know it was like a fan made. It was a fan made thing.
Let me pull it up right now. Actually, hold on.
And we've come full circle. We have come full circle on this episode.
We really have.
Exactly.
I think that is. I think that's a good way to almost like seek into our and fading out here. But I will say that we mentioned Skeleton before. Like Skeleton of the remaining songs on here. Like that's a incredible song. One of his smoothest again. Like of this side, very smooth, very like serene almost. He's low key on it. There's not too much going on in the vocal performance.
It's almost more like as peaceful as I guess.
Very peaceful.
Yeah.
The beat fades out once again. It definitely fades out. Maybe I'll do something special. See if we can get Wyatt to put in that phasing out edit. But we'll see. Maybe we have a little surprise at the end of the episode. But
special production.
Yeah. Special production.
We need to splice in the Sega sound.
Yeah, put the Indian version at the end, please.
Yeah, well, let Wyatt cook. I said, let Wyatt cook.
Shout out Kitten Puke.
I don't have much more to say overall. I mean, I love Butterfly Doors, like Patrick mentioned. Whoa, I mean, these are. Oh, I sent Patrick the because I didn't know if he had heard it. The tribute song "They Afraid of You." Yeah, where it was so good that he took it off his album.
I don't really remember. I don't think I listened to the rest of this Trippy album, but I can't imagine there's anything on it that he did that was anything better than this Carti verse. So
no.
Yeah, that album wasn't good. I don't know why that verse got removed. I was like,
sorry, I'm just looking at the thing in the Discord.
Yeah, I just sent the photo.
He took off the verse.
Funny.
He made that decision. I was always under the assumption it was like Carti being like exclusive and rare and being like no.
Well, okay. When that album came out, the first few days people were clowning it by saying that Carti's one verse like bodied your whole album. Yeah. I distinctly do remember that, and it narrator like it did, but I think he took it off because he was being outshined. I think so. Now I might be.
That's
wrong.
sad.
Yeah, it might be. I might be slandering Trippy, and I don't want to because I don't have anything like against Trippy. I mean, I wish some of his music was better, but whatever. But like,
album sucked.
Yeah, that album was bad, and that verse was great, and the song was Trippy was good on the song too. Like the what is it like? Chaw Squad production. Like it was a really good song. It was very warm, and I think it actually fits really well within this like 2019 Carti milieu. But
there's some good Trippy and Carti collabs. The other one I have saved is called.
They should do a fucking project together because every time I hear them together, I really like it. And otherwise, I don't fucking care about Trippy. I don't.
I do like 2017, 2018 Trippy, but I agree after that kind of goes down the toilet.
The batting average is very low after his first like 3 mixtapes. Like, and even in those mixtapes, I think are all like good mixtapes, but they're not like one of them, a love letter 3, I think is really good.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, but outside of that, like the batting average gets real low after that.
For sure. There's another good what is the name of that song? It's called Exotic. Yeah, I have it here. I'll send it as well on the Discord later, but it's basically a Trippy featuring Carti song, probably from 2019ish era. It's got that, baby voice inflection on it, so that's what I assume. And it's really good. So they're a good duo.
Yeah, they complement.
Yeah, Carti has a lot of chemistry with a lot of people, which is just another underrated quality of his too. He just seems to bring it out to other artists. You see it with Migos on here. He had it with Kanye and Cudi on his album. Like, well, when we discuss Die-Lit, like you'll hear about the Die-Lit stuff, like variety artists on there. Like, and in his early stuff, he was mimicking other artists, but I think that's more that he just has a good feel for how other artists sound. And it's not in that Drake sort of Swag Dracula sort of way, or the Game sort of Swag Dracula sort of way, where he's just like pathologically trying to mimic them. I think he just more has a good sort of ear for how other artists sound, and he can fit their sound and get them into his headspace versus just trying to see what he can get out of them.
Totally. And kind of going back to what we mentioned before, like the way he can adapt to songs like Earthquake with Tyler and like Almeida by Solange, like he fits in so well with these like dreamy pop tunes. I that's why I mentioned, like, I want to see more. I wish the Carti collab wasn't so rare. In a way.
But I guess
it makes it more special. But
yeah, exactly. If he didn't have that, he wouldn't have his mystique.
It's true.
So. Well, there's that that was on the Tracker fucking Summer Bummer song, A$AP Rocky. And,
it's bad.
I don't remember that, but your reaction to
it's not. Carti's contribution is ad-libs. It's one of those.
That's often the case. That's often the case.
So it's Rocky
is it just
and Lana
feature? That sounds pretty bad. So.
Yeah, no, it's not good. I have my reservations about Rocky's like pop crossovers, like psychedelic pop crossovers. I don't like them. So
I mean, we'll do. I don't know. We might do an A$AP episode eventually. Maybe.
I think it's better that we just like we've already touched on his like best shit in the cloud rap stuff and whatever. Like I feel like there's no point in doing a solo.
Lay a lot of meat on those.
Unless you get Perp as a guest.
Oh my god.
Yes. If we get Perp as a guest, that's all we're going to hear about is A$AP.
Yeah. And then we would just get fried. Yeah. No.
The best part is that that's not even outside the realm of possibility with SGP.
Yeah. That's why we've never done an SGP episode, because I just know that we would get absolutely cooked by SGP on Twitter.
Yeah,
so
he'll find it.
He'll find it.
We've heard. But yeah, Kit and Butte, get on that. Use your contacts. We need that for the dead zone.
Yeah, I mean, do John or Bodega, any of you guys, do you have like any final thoughts on this era and what makes Carti so special? Any kind of looking back, I was like, damn, this was already 4 years ago. Like that's crazy. But
yeah, I'm gonna hop off, so I'll just leave some departing thoughts. It's not really a standout to me per se, but I know on the expanded one there is the track with the artist formerly known as Uno the Activist, now known as The Act. But that's also feels like a relic, like just in terms of like how they had a falling out. And I've recently been going back and listening to a bunch of Uno's music, and it's all early shit is all really fucking good. But I couldn't even tell you like what era this particular song is from.
Yeah, so that song, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wasn't even sure it was on here, but I do have that one. It's called is it You and Me or You and I?
You and Me.
You and Me, okay. That song is really like once in a lifetime special, because it's produced by Pierre and it's featuring Uno. So it's kind of a crossover of two Cartis that, like the departure of Uno almost felt like the shifting point of Carti to the mainstream. At least that's how I view it. So as far as I know, that's their last song recorded that we know of.
Yeah, the way that I saw this one meme that was like how Carti sees Uno now, and it was like like a fucked up like SpongeBob face, and that really stuck with me. But it does feel emblematic of his turn away from being defined by being a SoundCloud artist.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'll have to go back and listen to that one.
All right. You gotta be out, John.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, Bodega, did you have anything to add? Any final thoughts? Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to get out? Speak now, or forever hold your Carti takes. I don't know.
Sure. All in all, I mean, this was. 1 second, hold up. Oh, no, never mind. I'm good. All in all, this was a really special era for me. It's definitely the time I was like the biggest Carti fanatic. So I was following a lot of this stuff as it came out. And it's really not like nothing else he did. I'm happy we have it as a little time capsule of, an era, part of his evolution that we otherwise may have never known about. So it's a good compilation. There's even more leaks outside of this that are really good that aren't even on here, like off top. One called Did It Again, which has like a lean ice sample.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
it's so bad of me not to mention that. That's an incredible song. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's amazing. And then there's a whole, you guys might talk about it in the future, but there's a whole realm of like everything after this era where things got more high pitched, more crazy, aggressive, like SRT with Uzi, which is like a whole other year off. Yeah. But yeah, his unreleased catalog is my personal favorite. I would say it's the best, but obviously you have Wayne, Thug, Keef all in the running alongside him.
It's always worth digging and exploring.
Totally. A lot of people should definitely check this stuff out if they haven't.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. That's kind of like my. I couldn't have actually summed it up better. Like just as a way to transition into the next era, and overall, I really want to thank both of you guys for coming on this portion. Thank you, the listener. We are almost completed with the Carti Odyssey through his whole career trajectory. If you've gotten this far, you're going to be hearing the second part of this episode, which is our conversation with a couple other special guests about the proper Whole Lotta Red album, plus a discussion on Rage and various other internet music leanings in the 2020s as a result. But yeah, thanks to Bodega, lookAghost, aka John, for coming on. Really appreciate both of you guys. Obviously, we'll be back shortly, more content, and hopefully we'll have Wyatt take us to the Whole Lotta Red portion of this episode in style with a snippet from one of these leaks. Peace.
Walk around them bills. Walk around them bills. Walking on with them bills. Fucking on your thought, beat gang cool. Hitting on the start, it ain't no I do. Hitting on the start, it ain't no I do. Fucking on your thought, it ain't no I do. Bitch, snakes, better bad. Number 9, red guy. Fight go begin. I fought that bitch, you better not forget to. Diamonds on me, came from Elliot. Money jumping off the building like a bee. Money jumping off the building like a bee.
Living off borrowed time. This is a very, very special continuation of a very, very special episode. And in fact, before we even get into any introductions, my co-host Patrick just said something very interesting about the album we're going to be talking about for this portion of the episode, which is Whole Lotta Red by Carti. You might have remembered an episode that we recorded right after the album dropped, which was the Honorable Mentions 2020 episode. Way back. OG listeners know about that one. But during that episode, we basically just talked about how crazy it was and how we hadn't really heard a lot of things that sounded like Whole Lotta Red. Well, I think it's fair to say that Whole Lotta Red birthed the genre, in addition to being one of the most influential albums of the last 5 years, hip-hop or otherwise. And joining me to talk about this album is none other than Santurce. How you doing?
How you doing?
Good. The repeated podcast had you on for another Regalia episode last summer, for those of you that listened to that. And also Joe, aka Leftlane, he was on for the Afterlife episode.
How's it going, y'all?
Great to have you both. And also, of course, Patrick, my illustrious co-host here. So back to talk about some...
for this one. So, the passengers.
Yeah, he let me have the honor of fumbling this intro. But it is what it is. And of course, if you're hearing my annoying ass voice, I'm Caleb, OptimalAudio and RYM. Wyatt will leave all of our information in the episode description for you. But yeah, this is one in a long string of Playboi Carti fragment episodes that we are doing to honor the 5-year anniversary of Dial It. So even though I just talked about a whole lot of Red for 90 seconds, before we even get into that, I would like to spend maybe 2 minutes on Dial It just from the guess, because you've already heard Patrick and myself talk about it. But Santurce, Dial It, 5-year anniversary. What does it mean to you? Did you listen to it when it came out? What are your general feelings and thoughts about it?
Oof. Dial It's it's pretty much my favorite Carti album. I think in hindsight, it's a phenomenal record. I think all the songs are aging really fucking well. I think it's definitely contributed a lot to like the trajectory for like modern music and stuff. Definitely is one of the pinnacles of Pierre's career as well. I think for an album which in this lane, a lot of people at the time, like the mainstream, I guess, viewpoint of what Carti was still like mumble rapper kind of thing. Like when people were using those talking points a lot, it was nice that he had like a high budget album, high budget features, and it played really, really well all the way through. And it was completely misunderstood when it came out. I will add, I completely misunderstood it when it came out, but there's no way that album would have made any sense like without like 2 years of sitting with you. It's kind of crazy when you go back and it's like super ahead of its time. Or like even if it's like perfect for the moment, I don't really go back to too much other like hip hop, trap music really from that time. Other than that record, it's still good.
It definitely has a quality to it that's aged beautifully, which I kind of think, like you just said, is not necessarily the case for a lot of music that I listen to that was popular in the mainstream from that time. You kind of listen to it back with a smile, like, oh yeah, I remember when. But with Dial It still sounds like insanely fresh. And so I guess on that note, Joe, did you have any thoughts of your own to add regarding the album? And I know, obviously we've known each other for a while. We kicked it about Dial It years ago. We had many conversations about how much we loved the album, but you had said to me that it kind of jump-started your love and appreciation for Carti's music.
Yeah, definitely. I was definitely late on Carti. Like, I wasn't really a Carti fan. I didn't even know about Carti when Self-Titled dropped, but in like the fall or late summer of 2018, that was like my freshman year of college. So, and that's also when I started like really listening to Dial It. Just like such an important album to me. It really got me into it prompted me to like discover more cloud rap type stuff. Like I wasn't into like rap music super seriously, like at late high school, early college. So this was one of the albums that prompted me to like dive deeper into stuff. And Pierre just did so well throughout the whole tape. I love those beats. They're still some of my favorite beats on that album. Long Time is like probably my favorite intro on any album I've ever heard. I pretty much agree with what Santurce said, like it holds up. I look back on it so fondly, and I'm just glad that Carti dropped that. Incredible record.
Yeah, and I wonder about with regards to Dial It, and as we lead into our discussion about this album, no two Carti albums, like he's been very careful over the course of his career to make something that sounds dramatically different from the previous record. So when Dial It came out, there were people that were coming around to Self-Titled in a way, at least, the singles, and they were undeniable singles. Those songs, like Carti was being a little bit more appreciated, but he wasn't there yet. So when this came out, you had a lot of people shitting on it, and especially when you hear what was new territory for him at the time, stuff like Flatbread Freestyle and the like. So then you fast forward, and I think that foreshadowed the rollout for Whole Lotta Red, because 2019 we had the whole leaks era, but then even in 2020 the first official single for Whole Lotta Red was At May, and we know that wasn't exactly received very well. I mean, when it dropped, I thought it was like incredible music, but I was not surprised. Yeah, I was not surprised to see the reactions being so divisive, let's say. I mean, I feel like mainstream hip hop fans and even underground rap fans got more appreciative of stuff like that in the years to come as opposed to 3 years ago. I'm not sure if you guys have any opinions on that or any of just the lead up to Whole Lotta Red, because to me it felt like this album would never come out. Patrick, I don't know about you, but it felt like this album would never come out.
Well, first of all, you called it flatbread freestyle, which makes me think about hearing Dilated of Panera Bread.
You made me think of pizza more than that, but yeah, I'll hold that. Apologies. I love that song.
And yeah, no, Whole Lotta Red was absolutely the Lucy holding the football over and over and over. I'm trying to think of what was the single. I gotta bring up the fucking Carti page. My actual concept for this, was actually to go through the 0.5 reviews and read them. I'm
sure there's plenty.
Oh no, there's plenty. I just went to the very last page. I was just going to do that on for the Dialed episode, which that's actually a time loop because you've actually heard that if you're listening to this right now. But Lead Oxide. This doesn't really qualify as music. It's just a strange man making, quote, ad-lib, end quote, noises over identical beats. It speaks volumes that even Playboi Carti fans have to be high to enjoy this. I can't even pronounce the band's name. I literally felt like I was losing every passing minute listening to this trash. RYM's misguided attempt to accept this kind of garbage trap and see, quote, artistic merit, end quote, confounds me. I have no clue how this has anything closer to average rating here. Love the reviews that let's like argue about the rate. That's okay. Yeah, no,
that's peak internet pet entry right there.
I'm pretty sure that's like, by the way, something that the thing that Sharifi writes that yells at you when you write a review is like, don't argue being in your review. So
it's like one of the 200 rules you have to abide by to post a review.
It's like the Apple terms and conditions thing. Like where it's like 10 pages before you have to agree to.
Yeah.
I need to, but yeah, there was like one single for this that I remember came out that everybody was sure, like, okay, this is going to be it for a Whole Lotta Red, and then it didn't fucking happen. So I need to actually look up what the fucking single was and then it did
Molly
for Whole Lotta Red.
Well, I think it was At May actually.
Yeah, I thought it was. That's what I thought it was because it was the real single because everything had been a leak or a snippet or whatnot. By the way, I just want to shout out the illustrious Mars Bars, aka Marshall, for his excellent review of At May, his 5-star review. Shout out to Marshall. But
ahead of the curve as usual on that one. And At May, yeah. At May definitely kind of, well, there's two, like, we'll get into it more when we talk about the actual nuts and bolts of the album. It's like there's two tones to it, and actually we'll probably talk about it more when we talk about the leaks, because it feels like such a tonally like all over the place album. But when I was listening to it today, which is the first time, like, one of the things about this album, and one of the things I brought up that's, I guess, kind of a meme statement, but I actually do stand by it, is that like our aesthetic as a podcast is like it's like Robert Pollard meets Playboi Carti, I guess, is that Carti is like Robert Pollard of trap rap, essentially. Is that what he does is he takes all the best parts of a song and puts them together into the song. Like, it's just hook. And that's what Pollard does with Guided by Voices. It's like just their verses are all hooks. And that's kind of how Carti raps. And then at first, like when I heard Location for the first time, and my initial review of Location, and my initial review of I think my Location review was probably good. I think my Carti review, my self-titled review is like 3 stars, and it says it'll make you dumber. One of my worst reviews. Like, because I'm like, this is good, but it's stupid. But if it's good, it's not stupid.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think each Carti album, more and more people grab onto his wavelength. But I do think that, especially from the self-titled back in that day, it was harder to find that wavelength because it wasn't something that we had seen a lot in rap music. The things that were analogous to it, or at least you could try to compare it to Young Thug, Future, et cetera, they even had more of the songwriting was a little more straightforward. You could lock in a little more with it. You would have to find Thug at his, yelpiest or his his most left field to try to lock in with Carti, even though it is all hooks. But for some people, that's harder to grasp onto than your typical verse, chorus, verse.
Thug and Future, I feel like, had both more obvious reference points. Like Thug, I think, definitely referenced back to Gucci and Wayne, and Future had more obvious obvious Outcast reference points. And again, Gucci, listen to the Gucci episodes. Gucci is a touchstone for so many. And I'm not saying Carti doesn't have these obvious touchstones, but I think Carti was just throw the fucking rule book out the window. And I think Location and Magnolia are just so fucking important. But then Die Lit kind of just really, I don't know. Die Lit, I think, is way more important in terms of how it takes the absence of structure and marries it to working with these major artists. And it's, I don't know, hard for me to, we're talking about Whole Lotta Red, but you have to get to Die Lit to get to Whole Lotta Red. And I think Whole Lotta Red sees him evolving in a way where it's both more conventional in a way because there's certain rockist, he's playing with rock tropes on Whole Lotta Red, but he's doing it in a way that both subverts them and recontextualizes them. And I'm using a bunch of fucking rock critic language on there, but he's definitely conscious of that. Like the Slayer reference, the Black Flag reference, the fucking guitar samples. It opens with Rockstar Made, for fuck's sake. Like
a raucous statement, if you will. You're saying Playboi Carti is raucous.
Yeah. Playboi Carti is an anti-poptimist. Yes.
Yeah, Chris Gow would be proud.
Yeah, where's his where is he going to market his RYM shirt about I am not a rockist with a 0.5 star screen shirt? But I think Christian, Too Broke to Care, kind of brought this up when he was talking about Whole Lotta Red on the episode you referenced, the honorable mentions. The red, actually, the artwork is a reference to a 70s punk magazine. He knows what the reference points here that he's making. So I think structurally, the stuff he's doing is both, punk monk, punk monk, punk rock. I don't know. I'm rambling all over the place, but I think you guys know the point that I'm kind of dancing around.
Yeah.
Joe, Santurce, if you have anything to add here and fucking bail me out of my fucking soup that I've found.
No, you're good. The album's definitely constructed very intentionally with the punk aesthetic and, mixing that with a bunch of musical elements, which really didn't see much of the light of day until the album came out. There's all sorts of influences which went into Whole Lotta Red. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I guess it's lore of the record. It got remade a couple times. So At Me was the lead single to the virtual kind of version, that style of music of Whole Lotta Red, and it just, I guess, never happened. And, before that we had all the leaks with the Pierre kind of sound. And I think what it was is he locked in with Filthy really close to the release date of when the album actually came out. And you add in all these Rage tracks. And this is early Rage where you still have a lot of the tread influence that Filthy brings in, which you don't really see a lot anymore. You just see it on this record specifically.
I was going to say, do we know specifically, you referenced Filthy being a big part of this album, being, of course, working on Dying Fame. Do you know, because I never looked into this, do either of you, Joe or Santurce, know when exactly the Carti and Filthy collabs, around the time they were happening? because there's a lot of them. It leads off the record. So, I mean, there's a lot of them, and they're very pronounced. Like, they sound like filthy beats. And this was definitely 100% the filthy explosion into not even just the mainstream. Like, he had been a thing underground for years, obviously. But it seemed like after he did this, like the Rage stuff, then he was on a bunch of other artists' records in the next 2 years doing Rage type stuff because that's what they heard on this album. They wanted that to be, they linked up for a similar sort of style versus previously, even on the Uzi Eternal Take stuff, that was like a lot of Brandon Finesse, so he wasn't really on that. So this was him like being distinct.
It was funny because like up until shortly before the album dropped, like a lot of people that were tapped into the leaks and stuff weren't really thinking that Filthy was going to be all over the record, if I'm remembering correctly. And then like
came out of left field.
Yeah, it kind of came out of left field. Like I think a couple weeks before it dropped, like New Tank leaked, and like that was so crazy. Everyone was kind of shocked by that, but like, yeah, it kind of took everyone by storm, if I remember correctly. Like having Filthy all over this tape.
I think it's like, I mean, I couldn't imagine the album without it. And I do think that, 2020 was really the breakthrough into the mainstream for Working on Dying, a crew that, now has Benny X with it, who just did a song with Drake, which, hilarious song is what the commentary I'll do on
that fucking thing that Horse put in the server?
It's like if Chat GPT made a Drake song. Like,
shit.
Yeah. And what's funny? What's annoying is I listened to it twice, and the second time I was like, I could see why somebody would like this, but I didn't want to listen to it again, so I went down that path. But yeah,
it's fine. Like it's a fine song. I mean, people were absolutely shitting on it, which like I get, it's funny, but like I don't know. Yeah. Oh, in reality, it's a fine song, and it's like
AI Drake. It's like AI Drake, but the beat's really good. Yeah, the beat's really good. But yeah, it's. I don't think it's gonna. It's worth like listening to long term. But yeah, it is just crazy that this, the inclusion of so much Filthy. But also, and we'll get into it later on the episode with Rage stuff. But another key producer on here was Out of Town, who.
Oh hell yeah!
Is a major influencer. That's where a lot of the Rage stuff, comes from.
Yeah.
But even longtime Carti collaborators, Art Dealer is on here, Pierre, of course, on a couple of songs.
Molly Raw,
of course.
Yeah, did a couple too, right?
Richie Souf, right? Was on here.
Richie's on the outro and Jump Out the House.
Jump Out the House, right. So we had some unusual suspects. Starboy, of course, yeah. This being the Rage's big break. This is like basically where the term started, I think, of Rage. Because before this album, I'd never heard of it. I had been at this point.
So there are no.
I might be
for this.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just asking. Like, since you guys know more, there's nothing precursor to like Rockstar made Filthy on this. Like, no precursors to this sound prior to this.
Oh, there's plenty.
There is, but it was way smaller scale in my opinion. Like I don't know what like Santurce would say, but you could argue the first ever Rage song was Woke Up Like This. Like you could argue that, which was of course on the self-titled. What's funny? I was listening to the Sofago Off the Map came out like a few weeks before Lotta Red came out.
Yeah. That's a big one of the first Rage beats for sure.
Big Rage song. And like has a very like, sounds dumb, but has a very Rage sound. Like I can immediately, if you play me 5 seconds of that beat, I would say it's a Rage beat. So it's like very like the archetype. What were some other touchstones you guys think?
I think a big thing, I mean with Carti in general, is that always, or not always, but like for the last few years, had been working with a lot of the producers in Hyperpop JP, which is where you get like a lot of the hyperpop virtual Rage kind of sounds from. Like everything they've done has been super influential. And that who's in that collective? It's Art Dealer, it's Starboy, Gabe, Loso, and
like
Out of Town, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there?
Those are the only names I know. So if there's any others,
it's not Lucrative's not in that, is he?
I don't think so, but I don't know. So those are the only names that I know. I'm not even too sure what all of them are doing now together. But I know they still get credits all the fucking time. But
well, are they? I know some of them do songs together, but do they do different shit? Because like Lucrative, for example, his production credit list is like a roller coaster. He's on all different types of shit.
He's done stuff with Yeet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's also done stuff. He's also done like emo rap type stuff too. Like he's been all over the map. So
he's worked with DSP, right, Caleb?
Yeah, he worked DSP. He worked with like Casper and Surf Gang back in the day, like years ago, like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But
I think
I'm sure we're naming a bunch of stuff that Patrick's like.
Speaking of names that Patrick gets confused by, you kept saying "woke up like this," and I thought you were saying "jump out the house," and that's why I was really. I'm sure that there was stuff before this. That's why I was like, there are no precursors to this. And that's why I asked. So
no, woke up like this.
Obviously off the subtitle, so that's why.
Because if you go back because I went back and listened to it. If you go back and listen to it, those first few notes when it comes on, which is still like the coolest thing to me. Those first few notes when it comes on, and even Uzi doing like the "I'm a rock star," like that whole stuff. That's you can kind of trace that where 3-4 years later, here's a Lotta Red and here's Rockstar Made as the first track. But yeah, Rage really. To me, since like that Uzi and Young Thug and Future and all those guys in the mid-20s, Young Thug and Future a little earlier than Uzi in 21 and Carti, whatever. But in this mid-2010s run, and Patrick, you probably remember this, we had a lot of rap journalism, a lot of music journalism in general, and a lot of discourse about how, rap is the new punk, it's the new rock, like these are the rock stars, right? And Rage music and Whole Lotta Red as an extension of that, to me, perfectly fits that aesthetic. And going back even earlier, we talked about it in the original Whole Lotta Red discussion about Danny Brown was doing Rockstar stuff on Triple X.
Oh yeah, I like Rockstar
stuff. Right, stuff like that, where rap as the new rock had kind of been this talking point in the 2010s. And really from the mid-2010s onward when, reject lyrics, embrace vibes. Like that was the movement.
Man, this talking point is as old as the Beastie Boys in 1985 and Rick Rubin. Like it's an old-ass talking point. No idea is original in this shit. Like the thing about like it's just a tired
I'll speak on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a tired talk. I don't know. Like it's a whole thing about like there's just a cyclical thing where it's like, no, we're sick of hearing people say words, so we want to hear them talk in a way that's more passionate. Oh, they're not saying anything, they're mumbling. Now we want Kendrick back. Now we want deep meaning stuff. Oh, that's boring. Now we want to hear people speak. It's just the discourse. It's, just music is music. Yeah, it's just cyclical. Again, like rap being the new rock is as early as, I can just draw it back to the fucking Rick Rubin shit in 1985, which I was not born until October of 1985, which still makes me old as fuck, but yeah, it's tired.
But you weren't around for that at least. So
I certainly, again, I've mentioned this in reviews, one of my earliest, apparently, musical moments that I have no memory of is running around singing "To Fight to Your Right to Party" by the Beastie Boys. So I didn't always hear it. But
and that's a rock song. And honestly, like if you just listen to it,
yes. And rock and hip hop have always had, mutual touchstones with each other. And it's not always a one-to-one simple discussion, but it's also like, and the punk thing, I don't know. Like, I feel like people just always want to put shit in boxes. And it's not that simple, but it's also, I don't know, genre discussions are stupid. And this is a really stupid thing to say from somebody who has nearly 7,000 reviews on rateyourmusic.com where we have fucking blood fights over genres.
I was about to say, do you know where you are?
Sorry, do you know what the niche?
Are you lost?
Is?
Gosh. Nothing.
Oh,
nothing.
Trap, rage, southern hip hop, experimental hip hop, cloud rap, shred, experimental hip hop, trap metal.
Trap metal is a subgenre.
I'm sorry, trap metal.
I think when it comes to the
metal album,
when it comes to this record, though, I think it's really you can get a lot out of talking about like rage and like virtual and all the styles that went into Whole Lotta Red. It starts to lose ground when you start talking about the overall like punk scene, punk influence. Because this album has that, like it slaps you in the face with it, with the cover and the aesthetic and the live performances with all the guitars and stuff. Yeah. But I mean it still does a lot when you talk about, like, if you have like a genre convo about this record, like you could still talk a lot about how rage is like a very big deal in, like, I mean, trap history, like history of like SoundCloud, history of like modern hip hop music. Like that's its own lane. There's all sorts of rage music. There's all sorts of music which led to rage. It's a really good subgenre. It's plenty of stuff to listen to. All the artists. I mean, for as much as people want to say rage is really samey, like I think I get a lot out of different rage artists. You know what I mean?
Well,
like Yeet and Zeliocho are two completely different artists.
Sound, I feel like they might as well sound like aliens compared to
just to list two. Yeah.
I mean,
no, I understand you.
God damn it! I had to repeat the same joke twice. Speaking of Yeet, like for my homework for the episode, I had to listen to some Yeet stuff, and I will say that like there's a lot of similarities between him and Carti, but you definitely notice some nuance. Like Yeet definitely seems more like of a punchline rapper than Carti. Carti's a lot more serious. You can feel like where Yeet like gets more in pocket than Carti versus Carti like tonally. I don't know. Carti does seem like more willing to. Carti's more experimental than Yeet. Yeet seems more like in the hip hop lane than Carti, if that makes sense. Like I feel like Yeet's more. I was hearing more thug in Yeet, young thug type influence.
Absolutely,
yeah. Like I had a really. I didn't publish it because it reminded me of one of the most infuriating Fantano things. And we're not going to talk about that, dude. We're really not. But one of the shittiest reviews he ever had, I was going to say one of the Yeet albums, I was going to give it a 3.5 and say it was Whole Lotta Red.
Damn. That's, I mean,
Because he had a really shitty review of a Yeet album where he said they were trying to die more lit, and I've raged about that. No pun intended on the show before, because that's a really super reading of it, because God forbid, artists in the same scene sound similar to each other. I can already hear why his blood pressure rising, as I mentioned it.
But if anything, because Carti, this album, when other albums came out after it, that evoked even remotely similar sounds, they were immediately compared to this, which I think speaks to, while it's dumb from said people that did compare it, I do think it speaks to the gravity this album has. Like, before we get into the discussion of like specific tracks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Joe, maybe you can speak to this too, because I mean, we've sent each other lots of related TikToks involving music we like, as an example. But around this time, over the last 3-4 years, TikTok being an exploding platform, Whole Lotta Red went like, if you could measure album sales, like, how they used to, but it would just be in like, use in TikTok videos, Whole Lotta Red would have went like quadruple diamond. Like, this was a very, very big album for like the virality of it, whether it was TikTok or any form of social media, Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. This album was like a massive talking point. When
you couldn't get away from it, even if you weren't into rap. Like, it was just 100%. All over everyone's feeds.
It would be on random stuff. Like, it wouldn't even be on anything related to hip hop. And the funny thing is I do wonder, like, how many of these songs made like terrestrial radio? Like, I have no idea. Like what?
I'm flipping through
none.
Okay. Yeah, I'm flipping through the track list right now, and I'm like, okay, I'm like going to my fucking old media brain and being like, which of these could be like on fucking like Power 99, banging hip hop and R&B. Philly's just for that. Maybe Teen X, even though that hook, no. Like maybe maybe Metamorphosis for Cudi. Maybe Metamorphosis.
True. Metamorphosis would be a good one. And it
Bino is hooky as hell, but it's also very I don't know. Maybe Bino because it's upbeat, and maybe Metamorphosis for Cudi. That's it.
What was the really viral one? Sky,
yeah.
That was the big one.
Sky had a lot.
That would be weird for the radio, though. Yeah.
Because people did the wake.
Yeah.
People did the wake up. It's the first of the month. Like that was like a common trend or whatever. Like, and it's a funny opening line to the song. Like it's a.
Well, yeah. Do people even get that that's a fucking reference?
Probably not. No. Because like you couldn't put I would think Control if you just delete the skit.
If only we could delete a lot. If only we could just delete academics. Like the Earth from existence. Not politically, not in Minecraft, like with bullets.
Literally, yes, that's quite literally.
Snipers, where are you?
Wait, Joe, do you know about academics signing to with
oh yeah.
Yeah, you sent that in the chat, yeah.
Yeah. He had like a picture with Trump from like way back, apparently.
God damn it. Why? I guess you have to put that up in the YouTube now.
Oh, it's out there. You can find it. I think it's at like some UFC fight or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that's hilarious. But okay, I guess it's good to reference as we get into specific tracks.
All right. Well, should we do like from the? I don't know. Should we just do it from the beginning, or should we like? Because I feel like the structure.
Fuck it, yeah.
Because like listening to this top to bottom, it's really, really well structured. Like really well structured.
I wanted to ask because Pat, I kind of know your thoughts. You guys, so like Joe, you can go first because I feel like you haven't talked in a while. But your initial impression of the album, I believe we were probably texting when it came out, something like that. But I don't remember it. So your initial impressions of the record, it's a roller coaster. It's all over the place. So like, what were you feeling over the course of the hour and 24 tracks?
I was mind blown. I was not expecting, like we were saying before, I was not expecting all that filthy throughout the tracks. I thought that at first I didn't really understand the scope of it. Like after a few listens, I was like, oh, this is his magnum opus. Like this, like Patrick was saying, like this is incredibly well structured. On first listen, I was just like, each track I was really liking individually. But it wasn't until a few listens later that I realized how they like mesh together. But yeah, I mean, first listen overall, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the Cudi and Kanye verses, I was like, I don't know about those, but everything else I was loving.
It's funny, I had the exact same first impressions, although I now enjoy, I came around, but I'm just, in the first impressions, I was like, God, they sound so old on these songs. Like, but those are my initial impressions. I don't know if, Santurce, did you like it at first? Did you not like it? I don't know what your thoughts were.
I think first thing I realized was that there were two albums. There's the Filthy album, and then there's the Not Filthy album. And I think what I gravitated toward most when it came out was definitely the Filthy record within this, just because I feel like, wow, that was the freshest thing, and I wasn't too familiar with stuff going on in the rage scene at the time. So I was like, wow, these beats are pretty sick. It's like, at the time I was like, is this Tread? Like, do we have Tread Carti? Like, I don't, because it sounds different. But I was really into that kind of sound. As time went on, I gravitated more towards the stuff like the, what you call it? I'm looking at the track list now. Stuff like Slayer, stuff like Teen X.
Mm-hmm.
Those just I think I just needed more time to connect with those. But I feel like there's definitely a lot going on in the track list, and I can kind of tell that he made it in a, like over several years, several different sessions. Like he has New Neon on here, which I remember when that was a leak. Like that's a really old song compared to some of these things.
Definitely the oldest song on here, right?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, New Neon and No Molly is crazy. There's No Molly. I think that was really disheartening.
Do you think it would fit though? And I guess you could say like New Neon, just the original song was Neon, and I love that song. But it is kind of funny that after Vamp Anthem, it kind of works as a bridge between Vamp Anthem and Control, because those songs are like songs like the gulf between those songs is like the ocean. So it kind of has like this. It has like this nice bridge to it. It is in a weird position on the album. Obviously, for me, I'm not going to overthink it. Like, I still love it, whatever. But I do think that song being on here as the only one from like the in between eras with all those leaks, like
I think Place was too. Place might have also
Place
been.
Was too. You're right. But at least that kind
of was a good halfway break.
Yeah, that one works a little more in the context of it. And once again, like, love Neon, so I'm not going to object to it being on here. I'm glad it released, and it sounds clean. Like it sounds like it got cleaned up a little too. But it is. I feel like they just needed a bridge to Control, and that was what was used for it. Who knows? Maybe that was one of Kanye's sequencing tips, which I don't know if Kanye should be giving sequencing tips. But,
actually, I'm glad you said something about that, because I think one of the things that Kanye obviously came to this very late in the process, and you could argue it was a bit of a Drake swag Dracula move, but I think that Kanye is somebody who can give sequencing tips when he's in the right headspace, is because he does and especially maybe when it's not his project. Because when it's his project, he's going to think it's a death. Especially the later in his career he's going to think it's a death. But when it's somebody else's project, he might have that editor's mindset, and he can give good advice. Because I like what Santurce said about it being two albums from two different periods and having to marry those two distinct sounds together, the Filthy project and the Pierre / earlier project. Because they're so very distinct from each other. The Filthy project having the much harder guitar edge, the ragged edge to it, versus something that's more melodically inclined, more stone feeling, more trap is the wrong word for it, but rage versus that sound.
Like psychedelia? I don't know.
Psychedelia, yeah. And having to sequence those things, because the transitions on this album are nuts. Things going together. That's one of the best aspects of the album, is that
100%
blend together, tracks bleed together seamlessly one to the other. The way you get Stop Breathing into Beano into Jump Over the House. I mean, you could jump over it.
You could jump. Yeah, I feel like I want to jump over a house listening to that song.
Honestly, yeah. I listened to this album today twice to prep for the episode, and I listened to it the second time while I was running. And Jump Out the House, that was one of the big peaks in my fucking run, was listening to Jump Out the House, because this album works for so many moods. That's one of the things we try and beat into your head on this on this show is seasonal listening and just mood listening. And one of the great things about this album is it fits so many moods. It's a great album for working out. It's a great album for when you're angry. It's a great album for when you're happy. It suits so many moods. And that's just a testament to how many moods it can encompass, just in the way Carti raps, in the variety of moods encompassed, and the instrumentals on it, the way it goes from one to another. And that's a testament to transitions from one track to another. And that's a testament to, I think, Kanye as a curator being brought in at the end of the process. And I mean, you can say what you will about his verse, but I think it grew on me.
It did.
I've been on a fucking Kanye strike that we've established on the show since he went through a fucking mental break in public because he's getting divorced and decided to hang out with a fucking shitty neo-Nazi and whatever. But so I'm not really trying to listen to any Kanye verses, but I did for the sake of the project, and I still like it. And I like Cuddy's verse better. I actually always like the Cuddy verse. Kanye verse took a second to grow on me because he's doing a weird flow. I think he doesn't really know how to rap like the kids do. Somebody probably wrote it for him, but he adapts well enough. I think his he does fine. I actually
like,
really.
It's like the most like skeletal beat on the album too, in my opinion. So it works for him because half of that song is just Carti saying like what.
Yeah, like Carti's in
beats.
the background, hype man shit, and then go to the moon. I go to the moon. Like, yeah, like I can understand the complaint you don't get enough Carti on that. Like, that is a complaint I understand, but so. And if I recall, the original track list had that like well down there, so I think it might have been like a bit of a spotlight hog. I don't know who made that call. Maybe it was Kanye wanting like to be pushed up, or maybe it was like somebody being like, "No, you have to have a Kanye song way up in the track list," because I think it was like originally 7 or 8, and then it got pushed to 2. But the Cudi verse I always liked, and putting the hums in the beat is fucking brilliant. I don't know who made that call. Fucking brilliant.
The whiplash you get in the beginning of the album is crazy. Like, after Go to the Moon, you just get slapped in the face by Stop Breathing, and then it goes right to Vino, which, I don't know. Yeah. It's just it's incredible.
It should be jarring, but it's not.
I agree.
Whiplash, but I think it's actually, like, it works.
It definitely works, and the slap in the face is so true, Joe, because, and I've referenced this, obviously in personal conversations before, but even in Discord, I've said stuff like or on my RYM log, where it's like, way back in the day, where around that time, I would wake up and go to work every day, and I would have that album on, and you just picture me, like, on a cold day, you're tired, you don't want to do anything, but you get in the car, you put this album on, and Rockstar Made immediately wakes you up. Like, I don't drink coffee, but I feel very it's like I just had espresso, like hopping in the car and putting Rockstar Made or putting Stop Breathing, Jump Out the House on, because before you know it, you can run from it, but you're gonna be doing your version of the Carti voice in the car to Stop Breathing. You're just gonna be doing it. You're gonna be doing ad libs. It doesn't matter what it is. So there's the infectious quality to Carti's music does not dissipate on this album. If anything, it only increases.
One, I sang a song, God, where it's like, I put your clothes on and my beanie starts eating. So I've like actually made a song where I feed my child to Playboi Carti's Stop Breathing, which is cute. And 2, the song is completely ruined by Playboi Carti's personal life, which makes that story a whole lot less charming.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So that was a cute anecdote that got completely ruined as I thought about saying that story. So
no, that's I always thought that. I mean, on that note, real quick, I thought that like R.I.P. would be ruined by that. Not.
I mean, R.I.P. has always been kind of like. Like, I mean, I love that song. Flow on that is so fucking like so gnarly, and like it's such a hard song. But then you listen to the lyrics, and I'm like, you're so angry. You're so angry about this topic.
Although it does give us maybe the most iconic Carti line ever, which is "Bought my mom a house off this mumbling shit." So,
which is also true. The gimmick I alluded to earlier, where I read all the negative reviews, like there's a reviewer who's so mad about that line.
Well, and on a similar kind of attitude is on Metamorphosis when he says, "Why the fuck I gotta remind you that I run this shit?" And apparently,
shout out to your review that got deleted, right?
No, it's still up there.
Oh shit! I don't.
Now that we've just alerted the authorities, but No, it's still up there. I've had some deleted before, not nearly as much as like some of your reviews.
That's my 3,000 fucking reviews that have been deleted.
But I've had some deleted before. Like I had a revival review that had like a bunch of favorites get deleted. I was pissed. I was really pissed. But no, yeah, Metamorphosis is like a song that grew on me. I had the Cudi slander in the chamber, and I retired it because I do actually think that, especially his flow on that in the first half of his verse is like really, really good. So,
and when I was listening to that today, he says like word to X or something, and then it's like, fuck, I forget what he says after that. It's like, is he referencing an X line on there? What the fuck was that? I don't remember.
You know what? I haven't looked up the lyrics for the verse.
Yeah, now we have to rap Genius Kid Cudi lyrics. We have hit a new low.
I only remember the part when he's like, keep it going, like, obviously.
Yeah,
Let's
goddamn.
he says, hold
I'm
on,
pretty sure he's
hold
like great radio.
He says, when I whip the X, I'm on a winning streak. I don't think.
I thought it said word to X. I'm on a winning streak. Not when I whip that. Okay, never mind.
I don't know. Yeah, hopefully it wasn't either X, Tentacion or DMX.
Yeah, I thought it was like word to X winning. It's like that. Yeah, like at the time, DMX was neither was on a particular winning.
Neither was on a winning streak. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So you referenced and I think one of you referenced "Go to the Moon" being maybe it was lower in the track list initially, and then it got moved up. I can't imagine, even though it gives maybe some total whiplash, I can't imagine that first part being any different, and I definitely can't imagine the ending run from like place downwards being any different. Like they nailed that sequencing. So maybe you could play around with some stuff in the middle. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
I think
maybe you could in the middle. It's not necessary though. I mean, I think the track list runs so well.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe the only thing you could do would be to just like go into it with a different thought process completely. Be like, we have a Filthy record, and then we have like a Pierre / everybody else record. But like for what you got, like it's actually impressive. There are 24 tracks on this, and it runs pretty well together. Like that's a pretty good feat.
A lot of that also is none of the songs are more than like 3.5 minutes, except for Metamorphosis.
Right.
So it does.
Metamorphosis.
Yeah, that one is pretty long.
First of all, 5 minutes. It never feels like 5 minutes. That is nuts to me that song is 5 minutes. It does not feel like that. I would say 3.5.
It's because the hook is actually, it's not long, but they draw it out because there's space in between the bars.
Metamorphosis is actually like the platonic ideal of a Mike Dean fucking Kid Cudi song without Mike Dean on it. Like, I don't think you ever have Carti and Mike Dean together, but they somehow nailed that. Like,
instead of Mike Dean, it's Gabe.
Yeah, that's the difference.
And yeah, in terms of the sequencing aspect, yeah, like I can't think of anything I would really change. Like, I guess you could I guess between Atme and Control, like those are a little like you can move those pieces around, but from Punk Monk onward, I think those are all just like airtight. And the run from Rockstar Made up to Teen X, I wouldn't change a thing.
Did you guys have songs? We can talk about some certain songs now and some of our personal favorites, all that stuff. Did you guys have songs that maybe didn't register with you in the beginning that now like are some of your favorites that really register with you? Because there were listening to this album obsessively for months around the time that it dropped, it really drilled in that even the songs that I didn't immediately love or wouldn't even consider top half on the album have so much going for them. Patrick just talked about Meh just as a aside. But even that song, like that beat is like, I've said this before, but it sounds like a demented ice cream truck from like a horror movie. Like that beat is so unique and cool to me. And he's just like, he'll like pause for 5 seconds before he says another bar, like during the middle of it. It's so cool. And the way he rides it, like, brand new Aventador, and it's like 5-second pause. And it's not least. That's what it sounds like.
The two songs that really fit that mold that you're describing for me are May and Punk Monk. And then also sort of Die for Guy. Die for Guy I didn't totally get until like my, I don't know, third or fourth listen, I don't know. But I mean, Die for Guy is maybe my favorite song on the whole album. But definitely the one that fits the mold the most. Yeah. The one that fits the mold the most, though, that you're describing is Punk Monk for me.
Yeah. I mean, Punk Monk is like one of the most personal songs.
I kind of feel like I touched on this a bit in the honorable mention when we were doing our initial reaction, actually. And then I kind of felt this listening to it today to refresh for the podcast, is I feel like that run from Punk Monk to Feel Like Dying is there were so many mumble rapper criticisms from like the Eminems, and presumably, although I feel like he was too much of a nice guy, whatever, didn't want to piss anybody off, the Logics of the world, or more likely the fans of the type of Logic rappers of the world, of like, oh, he's a mumble rapper not saying anything. But I think what I said on that episode is like, Carti is not mumbling on this album. He is making sure you hear every fucking word. There's no blah, 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 like whatever. There's no filters. There's no like, you can't, he's enunciating on this album. And he's making sure you get the content of what he's saying. And I feel like from Die for Guy forward, especially, you're getting real emotional content on this.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like the run from Die for Guy, the very end run, is something that I did not really appreciate until more recent listens. Like
I would even say,
but Punk Monk especially, like he really started from there, like the stuff he's talking about, like, and when you really start to unpack it, like he's actually like on a technical level even flowing, like. And I've maintained this, like, on Die Lit, there's some actual in-pocket technical flow he will never get credit for, because he's always put in this box of being, like, the mumble rapper, or he is saying shit, or this or that. Like, in the lane that he's in, he's actually very technically skilled. The type of shit he chooses to rap over is the type of shit that a lot of people wouldn't even try and rap over. Like,
the part where he's, like, talking about, I was trying to sign Trippie Redd before they knew about Trippie. I was fucking with Lil Keed when he made Lil Blake. And then, like, those next few bars, I know exactly what you're talking about, Patrick. Like, he is really he's in that pocket going crazy, really rapping.
Yeah, real hip hop.
Like, the only other rapper I can think of that does that type of shit is the Loopers, who also working on Die.
Yeah. Shout out to the Loopers. And he'll do some crazy, like, you know, flows all over the place where it just kind of sounds like he's talking some tracks, and other tracks he's, you know, more aggressive.
Yeah, which cadence, but he's always still in a type of pocket, and exactly.
Yeah. But no, I mean, and that Punk Monk follows Control, which is, I think, the most overt pop song he's ever made. I mean, that's just a straight up pop song. It's unfortunate that it's preceded by 30 seconds of DJ Academics, but the actual song, once you get through that, and I understand that skit is actually kind of important, because it's like, oh, it was a bad year, he gave us something to save the year. Like, I get why you put it in there. You could say it's a little self-aggrandizing, but it's right, actually. He's right. Well, so
I said this in our initial episode, is that yes, that was important, because at the time we felt that more at the time. It's easy to forget this at the time. It was 2020. We'd all been hit by the fucking pandemic and stuff. We thought this album was never coming out. Maybe we didn't need this shithead pedophile douchebag being the one to fucking tell us this, but still, it was an important point to make.
It was an important point to make.
Yeah, and maybe it could have just been that. Like, we didn't need him dropping a bunch of names beforehand. Because I've forgotten that he's like, oh, we got this guy producing this. We got Kanye on here. We got this and that. Like, yeah, you know a bunch of people. Fuck you. Go to jail. Go straight to jail, asshole. Like, fuck you.
God, that was bars right there. that was amazing.
That came hard.
It did. It did. And you know what? You're right, and you should say it.
But yeah, like, if you're going to have him on there, it should have just been like, we had a shitty year, but you thought you weren't going to get this, but, you know, Santa came.
I mean, Christmas Day. It was so deliberate that he did that. Because, one, who drops on Christmas Day? And B, it was like, it was like, I gave you all a gift. And of course, like normal people, most people couldn't accept the gift on in the initial run.
Yeah, they got on Twitter and complained about it. Did you listen to the album? No, I did not. I just got on Twitter to shit on your happiness like normal. But
also, I don't understand the pushback against this album. I really don't. Like, it seemed like a good album when it came out. It seemed, again, like a good couple of years of Carti all in this one album. I feel like everybody, I mean, if you're going to look at it like every different camp, every, like, I don't know how they look at it for like Taylor Swift fans, like every era of Carti, right? All of you of you ate.
What mainstream sounded like this, though?
Also, a big part of that was like, a lot of the diehard Carti fans were expecting something else. And that like let a lot of people down initially. And then it took them a while to like come around. Like just based on Dial It and the leaks leading up to Lotta Red, a lot of diehard fans were like, what is going on? Like I wasn't expecting this. Like I want what the leaks sound like.
I mean, I can see
they all came around, so
I can see a cold water shock from the filthy stuff at least, and being so accustomed to the leaks. But why do you want to hear what you've already heard?
I mean, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying that there were a lot of people that was their reaction.
I'm trying to devil's advocate for that. But what we talked about on the year end was what Caleb said was that there were a bunch of just fucking hot take economy, just fucking thought influencers who don't even care about Playboi Carti, or just like, let's accept that this album's not good. You waited for this thing that you like and it sucks. It's like, you don't even care about Playboi Carti. Like that was what the discourse was at the time.
Because Carti at the time and Dial It retroactively made him a star. Like he had Magnolia and people thought he was like a one-hit wonder. I mean, in a mainstream listening context.
Which is crazy.
And the bigger artists at the time, even people who fucked with him, people like in that range from when Dial It came out to when Lotta Red came out, 2.5 years passed, almost 3, for being honest. During that time, Uzi had massive numbers he was putting up. Now, granted, he had a lot of time between his albums too, but whatever. The point still remains. 21 became a lot bigger. And Young Thug and Future had the legacy stuff, and they were, like Patrick has alluded to, they were more... they had already been accepted at that point as influential and genre-changing
already,
and
like,
shit.
Hall of Famers.
Right. They were in, people respected them, their time in the discourse sun had ended. What else? And you had people that had originally came up alongside Carti peers who really ascended or maybe fell off and nobody talked about them. But there were all this time passed, and during the 2.5 years from when Dial It came out to when Lotta Red came out, there was a lot of, okay, now Dial It has retroactively been claimed as a classic. We love it. It's amazing. All these artists love Dial It. Like, you could watch interviews going back to, like, a lot of these underground artists with, like, Montreality or stuff like that, where they were like, I love Dial It, like, Carti and yada, yada, yada. So it clearly had been influential in the underground. But then Lotta Red comes, and I understand what you said, Santurce, earlier before I steamrolled your point about how you get different eras of Carti, and there are a couple songs that more evoke a similar era to Dial It. I mean, my favorite song, it's one of my 2 favorites, is Over, which originally was dubbed Long Time 2 by the fans, right? Because it has a similar sound to it. But even then, my point was like, what really like sounded like this in the mainstream? We're going to talk soon about things that followed, but before that, in the mainstream, what was hot that year? Still, if you go back 2020 and look, Eternal Take was hot that year, but you had, and that what I would say is the most similar. But even then, that's worlds different. And then you had like that was a big year for like Michigan rap and like Flint, Detroit. That was a big year for like Lil Baby and like new like that Atlanta stuff. Like Gunna had a big album that year. Yeah, like Pop Smoke, obviously, rest in peace. Like
that year, yeah.
In the aftermath of his passing, like so that wasn't the mainstream sounded nothing like this at the time. So yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly. I was frustrated in the moment. I was really annoyed because the takes were like unbearable. But
yeah, the discourse was more annoying than the like anything on the actual album ever could be.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, I think it was just bad faith arguments. Like, it was a lot of bad faith arguments from people who weren't Carti fans. And I think the Carti fan arguments were more out of disappointment that they weren't getting a curated album of the Leaks.
Yeah.
Like, they a finished album of the Leaks, or they wanted new Pierre. And Pierre and Carti had both moved on to different things. And Pierre fans aren't ever happy with what Pierre does either. So they're like, stop working with Jelly. Stop rapping on your own.
That funny because that year the first collab with him and Jelly came out, and that was dope. That was actually really good. The second one,
yeah, Wolf of Peachtree goes hard.
yeah. The sequel not as good, but the first one was great.
I mean, I'm fine with the sequel. I mean, it's just like Jelly's
it's
kind of a non-entity, but he's all right. Like
he's all right, yeah. The first one had such a distinct sound and aesthetic to it that made it so great. That's what I loved about it so much. But yeah, I mean,
up the air though is that I feel like his fans are never happy because they just want him to do Die Lit. And I think Carti's fans, at least a segment of Carti fans, are not happy because they just want him to do Die Lit.
Mm-hmm. Well, anytime you come up on a style and you become popular on a style that's like gonna become like a fan favorite, it's tough to get out of that. I feel like, especially in hip hop, right?
Correct. Yeah,
I mean,
hip hop is what's weird about hip hop is it's one of the most conservative genres. Like rap Republicans are like you have rap Republicans, you have rap neoliberals, you just have so many fucking people in this genre who just want it to stay the same or progress. Yeah.
Rap neoliberals, that's crazy.
I think I'm about to piss off one of our frequent guests when I say Kendrick Lamar is a rap neoliberal.
100%. He's literally a Democrat. Yeah, he's like
Kendrick Lamar is the rap Nancy Pelosi.
All right, I was gonna say Obama, but you got me.
There, I just gave you your fucking your headline for when you put this on your log.
Kendrick is the rap Nancy. You know, it is funny, but to that point, Kendrick, and this is not to discredit his 2010
I still like Kendrick Lamar, by the way. I do not like
him. Oh, of course not. No.
Wait, and by the way, is J. Cole the Pete Buttigieg?
Oh my fucking god.
J. Cole made the airborne toxic event thing happen. the train crash.
No, J. Cole was the guy that behind closed doors in after New Hampshire in 2020 called up everybody and said, "Look, we can't beat Bernie. So what we have to do, we have to drop out. All four of us have to drop out, and then the fifth place guy, Joe Biden, we team up with him, and he can do it."
Remember when J. Cole was like, "We should be able to pay our taxes like on our tablets or whatever." On that song, I don't know. I can't deal with that, man.
With Williamson.
Yeah, who's the rap Marianne Williamson?
Who's the rap Marianne Williamson? I was about to say Absol, but that's mean. Like his new album.
Good. Oh god, that's a good one.
Who's real like crystally and fucking new agey and rap? I mean, that's
is it like no? It would be no. Forget it. That would be mean. I was gonna say Jid.
The Absol thing was already pretty mean.
The Absol thing was pretty tough. Damn, Joe just had some Jid slander. Patrick wasn't even.
I see. I shouldn't have said it. That was stupid. That was mean.
I mean,
I actually fuck with Jid.
I've come around a bit on Jid just because of Forever Story, but
that was a good record.
Yeah, that was a good. Jid is he's definitely. I like Jid. He definitely improved a lot.
Still haven't heard his new one.
I realized that I got Elizabeth Warren and Marianne Williamson mixed up.
Oh, that. Okay, that's a catastrophic mix.
It wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't misgender somebody or get somebody's name fucked up.
Okay, Rap Elizabeth Warren. That's better, actually.
Podcast.
Rap Elizabeth Warren is better because you know what? You know who's Rap Marianne Williamson though? Is DaBaby.
What the fuck?
That's fucked up. I don't know who that's meaner to.
Who's the Tory Lanez? Who's the Tory Lanez real life version?
Well, Herman Cain's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably they're Canadian.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was crazy.
Why?
Here's our attempt to do a transition. Speaking of artists, way better than.
Why? It's like this was going so well.
It was going great. You know, to finish up with that control section of the album, though.
That was the hardest pivot.
Oh, hey, man, let me cook.
You just pulled the e-brake on this.
I apologize to all listeners for our antics. Yeah, I mean, just because we talked about control, but we only talked about academics. Control should have went number one in a just world. You know, like those memes where it's like society if blank, and it's like
fucking flying cars.
Yeah, it shows like flying cars, like great functioning society. Society if control went number one would be perfect, because it really is just like his best pop song. Like, it really is like a perfect pop song. He even has like, he peels back a lot of the layers, kind of like what Patrick was talking about on Punk Monk, which is the next song. But he's very vulnerable on that. And it's not a song.
I actually disagree with you, because I think Teen X is the best pop song, but it's not because the content of Teen X makes it not the best. But I think like the construction of Teen X makes it the best pop song.
That's
like
true.
The Molly Raw beat, or like the choruses.
The choruses.
Yeah, the choruses, yeah. And also, I mean, the problem is...
Chorus, hook, hits you, hook, and the delivery having Future there.
Yeah, Future had a great verse on that song.
And the funny thing is...
At the end of the first verse, when they take out the 808s, and Carti's just like floating, and then the 808s come back in for the chorus, it hits so hard. It works so... Great. Obviously, that's not like a crazy thing to do, but like, it just works so well.
Yeah,
and then the way it like comes in from New Tank and then it goes into Atme, like, yeah, like holy shit, like it's so like it's both so well placed in it and works individually.
100%, yeah. That's a really good point.
And it gets stuck in my head every time I fucking hear it. So, but I think that like lyrically, it can't be the best. Like, I think Control is actually the best pop song, but I think because of the lyrical content of Teen X and like, but I think. I don't know. Teen X gets stuck in my head more than any song on this album.
I like the fact that Future does a Carti impression on that song. In a way, it shows like the influences looping back around.
That's a good point.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, he just he does the like the little voice, and it's not that not similar from a Future verse you could have heard that year, but it's just the way he's doing it is obviously to be in line with what the vibe that Carti's going for on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm on the X, I'm on the codeine.
I'm on the X. Also, yeah, like one of the things I love about Carti is the way he plays with his vocal inflections, the way he'll do a different take on something. Like he'll do like 10 different passes on the same line. Like I hate like I was going through the negative reviews for like my little concept thing, and like they'll say, oh, he says the same shit. Oh, he just repeats himself. He never fucking repeats himself. Like actually repeats himself.
Even
people who listen to fucking rap music and say, oh, they just say the same shit over and over. He like will literally say a line 10 different ways.
Like one really good example of that, I think, is on Jump Out the House, where he's literally like repeating the same thing. But then like he switches it up and he goes high pitched at the end, and it hits so much harder because of that.
That's another thing he shares with the loopers. Yeah, like just a way of like varying up his cadence and flow on like the same line. Exactly.
That song is definitely like I think this is going to sound stupid, but that song is kind of like a Rorschach test for how much you like how much you really fuck with Carti and what he's trying to do and experiment with, because that song I can definitely see as being like off-putting. I remember, Patrick, on our year-end episode way back, 2020, Travis was like, Jump Out the House, like, it's okay. And you were like, Jump Out the House is okay? Like, yeah. It's definitely if you're with it, you are on this album's wavelength. You are going to love this album. Like, this is for you. And when I heard that song, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, Bino, like, that, basically, like, again, like the Kanye verse is like kind of you have to take a minute to decide if you're okay with it or not. Like let it sit with you. Like again, yeah, Kanye had to kind of take somebody else's like he was a latecomer to the Carti thing, set up like acclimate himself to it, but then Stop Breathing into Beano, into Jump Out the House, into Metamorphosis. That run is just legendary to me, and the way they flow into each other, both instrumentally and the way Carti vocally does stuff with all of these things is just remarkable music.
It really is. It really is. We didn't even talk about things that you can't say to yourself when you're at work. You know, when I go to sleep, I
was
dream
singing
about
that again today. By the way, you
were singing that song at work.
About slurs. We're just talking about disturbing phrases.
When I go to sleep, I dream about bird. Yeah, I mean.
Also, this album is surprisingly funny in places. I think Vamp Anthem is hilarious.
Very funny. The beat is very funny. Like Castlevania type beat.
It's also a good example of
not even like Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I'm talking like Castlevania Bloodlines. Like this is like low budget Castlevania.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's a good example of oh my fault.
No, go ahead. I was kicking it to you.
How this album does not have any. What would you say? You said terrestrial radio. Yeah, Vamp Anthem is one of the most viral moments on here, and I'm thinking about it. It sounds like a TikTok song. You know, not to like. That's not as a way to like belittle the song. Like it's a great song, but it's. Do you know what I mean? Like I think of
it's
short form video
like
content.
Kind of loopy. Yeah. Yep.
But like I've never thought about it. Yeah, doesn't make this a radio album in any way, but it still makes it an incredibly like viral and catchy album. Like this album's full of like shit like that.
I can picture the the viral dance clips to Vamp Anthem. I don't think these actually happened, but hypothetically, the viral dance clips, and you click on the bio and it's like the link tree and in the bio or whatever. Yeah, that's just every creator with Vamp Anthem. But no, you're right. It's easy to loop, and it's easy to consume in 20-second, 30-second video format where the hook is so direct and the beat is kind of obvious that it definitely makes its point in a short period of time.
Like, Pierre is kind of like the pioneer behind that.
Absolutely.
You think he pioneered that with Magnolia or something else?
That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah,
I think that's the perfect way to put it, and that's why Kanye and Cudi sound so old on here, is because they're coming at it from an old media mindset. And I think that's why Carti is so brilliant, is that he's both able to like kind of take like old sort of hip hop construction and flows and marry them to like this, which I, with my old fucking pudding brain, don't really understand, like TikTok, like 30-second sort of consumption mindset, like things that translate to that. But he also has things that are like minute and a half. You can digest it that way or repeat them like 3-minute songs, like, old people understand. You can take it in all of those sort of media digestion sort of ways. And like Future works perfectly because I think he also is able to sort of straddle those sort of like wavelengths. So I think that's why Carti's a brilliant artist, is because he's like between all of those sort of strata. And I think that's why this album is resonant, is because it goes between all of the sort of time frames. And that's why it birthed a genre, and why it
transcending
time and was shit on by fucking people who just wanted to be like, oh, you just waited for something for a while and I want to laugh at you. And also this was misunderstood by the fans who just wanted to hear the album they liked before and the sound they heard before and didn't want to hear. It's like every really great album that kind of did something new, because everything that does something new isn't going to be understood in its time. But it also sounds good at the time, but it takes a while to really be understood in its context.
Yeah, no, I literally couldn't say it any better. Like that is what I think over time, and you already saw it a few months after the album came out, whether it was online discussion, even RYM, comment boxes, which aren't always the beacon of sanity, but you saw that more and more people came around to it and was like, why the fuck didn't I love this at first? Or like, this is a classic, or this is this, or this is that. Like, this was a massive, massive album, and I want to touch on something that both Patrick and Joe talked about earlier in our discussion, but once you get post, On That Time, which, by the way, one of the best beats on here, but once you get post that, and you get into, like, the Play Sky Over, I Love You, I Hate You, Die For Guy section, that has always been, like, since day one, my favorite section on the album. I think the songwriting there, not that it is an A+ on the rest of the album, because it is, but the songwriting there in that section is perfect. Yes, the pause on Place is, like, very funny, but I actually like it, because once the beat comes back in, you kind of vibe with it. Santurce, I think you said that Sky was, like, the big one. I think if you... I might check the streaming numbers right now. I think it is still the biggest one. That is, like,
by far the biggest.
By far?
Perfect. Oh, well, thank you, Joe. Thank you for confirming that. Perfect song. Like, just from a structure perspective, even in the second verse when he gets a little, like, internal paranoia.
Okay, I will say, my one, we've been very, very, very complimentary to this album. It's a very defensive album, and especially, like, I don't want to impose too much of the artist's personal life onto the album. It doesn't like women. That's my one issue with it. It's very hostile toward, like, that can be a bit off-putting. I'm not going to say it ruins it in any way, shape, or form, because obviously we love it. I feel like I can comfortably speak for everybody in this conversation. We all love the album. I do like every song on here, but I did notice that listening to it is like, and it works honestly in the same way a Danny Brown album works, in that he'll be like, he is actually critical of himself in, like, a way that I feel like he'll never get credit for, in the same way Danny Brown won't necessarily. Like, I'm trying to think of specific examples, but, like, and I think I might be maybe a little too complimentary of him, or as a nuanced lyricist, quote unquote. But like, he does, like, take himself to task, I'll say. I don't know. But I don't know.
I think it's interesting having Over come after Sky, because you look at Over, and this is, not exactly reinventing the wheel here, but the lyrics to Over are not exactly uplifting.
I mean,
and he's talking about like, about how he struggling with the fact of not just drugs and the life and whatever, but also, like, what exactly, like, it kind of feels directionless, in a sense of he's hurt, and he's clearly hurt, and he doesn't really know how to, like, adjust to that. And so, as it relates to women,
kind of trying to bridge a little bit, both talking about Carti as a lyricist, which he should get credit for, and also criticism of. I think he never gets credit for actually being a lyricist, because he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like, one example of what you're thinking of is, like, when on Control, he's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is I can't change, but for you, I do things.
And also you have Die For Guy, where I feel like he's actually being, like, open about his relationships to, like, his friends and how he feels about them. Feel like dying.
Oh, yeah.
And then,
and his, like, his upbringing, a little bit, just
obviously Punk Monk, and is Punk Monk where he talks about Side and Trippy?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I love
drug issues, not really to the degree that Yeet does. And I'm also, so this was supposed to be a twofold kind of transition, like, talking about him as a lyricist, which I think he is and deserves both credit for, like, in both being able to flow, and that he is a lyricist, and he's not one-dimensional, but also he can be, like, misogynistic and kind of a shithead. But I think that he does have more dimensions than he gets credit for. Like, there are songs that are deliberately, with the sequencing we were talking about before, in contrast to other songs. There's one example here I'm talking about, and I can't think of which songs are back to back with each other, where he is, like, actively criticizing what he did in the last song.
It might be like, I mean, I Love You, I Hate
The
You.
last couple tracks.
I Love You, I Hate You
It's
is
definitely
after
the album.
Yeah, the ending portion of the album, I think, I Love You, I Hate You being the one where he basically, is essentially saying he can't really function without
the other transitioning
drugs.
part I was going to be was what I was trying to get into was with Yeet, where I feel like Yeet tries to do more stuff lyrically, but I think could be criticized for just kind of going back to just talking about doing perks over and over.
People do criticize him for that. Yeah, that has been a talking point.
It's certainly a recurring theme a recurring trope in the Yeet music.
Yes, it was definitely there. I guess, and it would be as good as time as ever to go there. Before we get there, Santurce, Joe, favorite tracks. I'll say that mine are Over. People who are longtime fans have heard me talk about Over and Die for Guy and Feel Like Dying and stuff like that on previous, on the year end and way back. So I'll spare them. But to this day, those songs have not dissipated for me. I think the transitions from, Sky, Over, I Love You, I Hate You, Die for Guy. I mean, that run is just, I think that 4-song run might be the best run of Carti's whole career. So,
compared to Die Lit stuff, though.
I mean, I like, and this is splitting hairs, and we'll, obviously,
I mean,
It's
this
splitting hairs. Like, I think
in terms of the way we're recording these versus the way they're supposed to be listened to.
Right. Those of you that have listened to the Dial It episode will know that it's still my favorite album from Carti. It's still one of like my 5 favorite albums ever. So this is nothing against that. And maybe I'm overstepping. We'll get to that, or you'll have heard us talk about it already, rather. But either of you two favorite tracks?
I'm gonna pick some ones which I haven't completely overplayed. I think my favorite song on this is On That Time, honestly. I think that beat is still probably like my favorite Filthy beat out of the bunch on here. I really still listen to like a lot of the Filthy kind of stuff. I think of the outro, like the second half of the album, outside of like Punk Monk On That Time, right? Once you get to that section, it's less ragey and more heady. Like, what's good about this album is you have Carti at his best when he's doing his short form ways of recording, where the way he enunciates, the way he gives his lines are more so the attraction and the repetition of that, as opposed to like you get like Die for Guy or Not Playing or Feel Like Dying, where you have actual Carti verses, right? And before this, it was a long time since you heard proper standard Carti verses, with like themes. Yeah. But I think I don't gravitate toward that side as much because it's definitely something I listen to in the context of the album more so than I'm just bumping Feel Like Dying or something in the morning or whatever. On That Time for me, I think Beano is definitely one of my favorite songs on here. I think I've stopped breathing. I've played that one to death a little bit. I think Rockstar Made is still an amazing intro.
I can't imagine any other song.
That is a great intro still. Yeah. And then maybe Meh. I don't know. I like most of this album still. I bump most of this album whenever I hear it. It's great. Hard to pick favorites from it. It's also hard to detach this record from whatever came like immediately after when it comes to Rage and stuff like that. Or like listening to what Filthy did or like what Gabe did shortly after.
And you're a production guy. We talk about a lot of songs just all off podcast air about, and you reference a lot of production. And I find when we talk about albums that we both like, that you really like your favorite songs are production driven. So do you think that was the case again, like with this one, where you were really locked in on a lot of the Rage stuff, and so that's what like drew you to those songs?
Yeah, I think before I even was conscious of the fact that the Rage scene was like going on, was a thing, like was a style of music, those beats were, they sounded fresh to me, so that's what I wanted to listen to more of. And it's like I heard the Off the Map shit, but I didn't really make that connection. That like I don't even think people started saying Rage beats until the Trippy song came out.
No,
I think it comes from that, like literally.
When this album came out, Rage was not a thing. No one said that.
It's weird. It's funny. People were saying like Tread at the beginning, like when it came out.
all these,
no one was
Because
saying
the filthy
rage.
connection and stuff
No one-
like that.
Yeah. And like I hear that. I mean, that's fair.
Oh yeah.
Like Stop Breathing and Rockstar Made are like tread songs.
I mean, out of all the Rage producers out there, right? Filthy's got to be the one who. I mean, I can't think of any other tread producers who make Rage now or anything like that. I mean, they've also made like Five Finger Posse. They've made reference to like, oh, like, you know, they took our sound and now it's Rage. It was on one of the records. I forget. It was the green one.
Yeah. The green
they did.
one. Yep.
Yeah.
But I also disagree with that. I'm not. I mean, they've made great records. I'm not hating on Five Finger Posse, and individually they've also made dope records.
Yeah,
but
great.
the tempo is too fast for the difference in tempo between like
It's very
the
different.
best
Yeah.
like when you listen to black punk rock, that doesn't sound like any of the songs on Whole Lotta Red. It's a lot more like
It's a lot more synthy.
Yeah, it's a lot more synth driven and a lot more like in your face versus the black punk rock and even any Five Finger Posse song. It's like a low rumble versus
Tread is dark.
Yeah, very dark, very very dark, which is why it's not quite as accessible. You know, those some of the best Five Finger Posse material are like underground classics. They're not going to be on the level of this. And when this album came out too, one more thing before we get to you, Joe, I promise. Someone, I think it was Marcy Main, who's a member of RCB, or maybe formerly, I don't even know. But he tweeted, I remember this, he tweeted like whole lot of RCB aesthetics. And this shit sounds nothing like RCB. So that didn't and as someone who, especially at that time, loved RCB, like was all over that. No, absolutely not. I don't hear it personally. But any of your favorites, Joe, before we move on? And you know, I think it's been a little scattershot, but I feel like we've done justice to how much we all love this album. So, any particular final thoughts or favorite tracks? Anything you want to say? Get your takes.
Maybe my favorite verse on the whole album is the Punk Monk verse, but I mean, the ending run is my favorite. Is my favorite like section, I guess. My favorite transition is from "I Love You, I Hate You" to "Die for Guy." That goes absolutely crazy. Hard to pick a favorite song.
It's a mood thing, you know.
Yeah, totally.
It's like
situational.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Over. I would probably go with Over.
Over is like such a nakedly emotional song, and the hook is so like, you know, how the fuck we got to where we started. Like all that is so good. Did you guys think Kanye heard "Feel Like Dying" and was like, why the fuck didn't I get that Justin Vernon sample? Like, God fucking damn it.
Can't complain. He got Justin Vernon on the album.
Yeah. No, he's
like 10 years prior.
He's fine. Yeah,
he's
just like
he's
God
not.
Damn it.
Actually, the one thing we can say about Kanye is he is not fine.
True. I meant at the time he was okay, which he probably wasn't either. That's all.
I was about to say.
Yeah, that was during the WWE beef era. So never mind. But we've referenced many times this birthing a genre. Santurce, do you think the first time you noticed, something sounds like Whole Lotta Red? Because I'll tell you, the first time I saw internet discussion about it, and the first time I heard the term rage, was in the lead up to the Trippie Redd album, which I think came out like 4 or 5 months after this album came out.
I think it was
4
like
months
March.
after this album came out. Yeah,
between March and May of that year. Yeah,
very closely after
Something
this
like
album came out. And to me, the first time I ever even conceived of rage as a genre, subgenre, style of music, whatever, was the original Mr. Rage mashup, which was only Carti vocals from an old leak.
Oh, that one.
The Juice WRLD Had To song, right? Yeah, the old Carti and Juice WRLD song, and they put the vocals over the shit. Mr. Rage beat, and that was like the mashup.
Mr. Rage is
I didn't even know that was that.
So Mr. Rage is old? I thought Mr. Rage was like way newer than...
Well, it's not. What happened was there was this mashup that was fan made that blew up online, and fans loved it, and Trippie Redd loved it, and he was like, I'm gonna gonna make Mr. Rage a song, but the Carti verse was a new verse. Like that wasn't the fan. It says
2021 on RYM. So
yeah, it came out that year.
It was the lead single for his album, which was a Rage album. But Trippy, I think he got the inspiration from it from hearing that old fan made mashup.
I mean, it's a very good song. Like I really like the song, but
I think it's like the defining Rage like.
I think it literally defined it, the name.
It was in the title, yeah.
But yeah,
it's kind of crazy.
One, which obviously is post dating on a whole lot of Red. So
yeah.
So
that album got derided when it came out, like that Trippy album.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to talk about Trippie Redd.
Yeah.
I suppose
a very interesting figure when it comes to Carti too. I mean, if you remember, he took off that Carti verse on his album from like 2019 because people said that Carti washed him on the song.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's an amazing verse too. It's still on YouTube. You listen to it. It's up there. I listen to it sometimes. It's great.
Remember Carti got taken off the Young Lean song? That was rough.
Well, that was a label thing, right?
Was it? I don't know, but that was rough. Whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever it was. But yeah, Trippie Redd, interesting figure in.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about him overall. He has like one project I like.
Which one was that?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, which project?
Can look to find out which one it was, and I don't have anything rated, but there was one project of his I fucking liked, and I want to say it was like fucking from 2016, but he doesn't have anything I see before 2017. So
it might have been was that the one that had
in the chair, like the throne kind of thing?
Yeah, a love letter to you one.
I guess it must have. I have 2017. A love letter to you is the first thing that I see that I had like. I guess that's it. There was one thing I heard from him.
That was one that had the love letter to you was a good tape. That was the one that had he blew up off that tape. That was the one that had the collab with Travis.
Thing rated and Life's a Trip. I remember hearing not liking. I remember not liking this shit. It has Diplo on it, and yeah, I'm sure I didn't like it. Like I remember hearing this and not liking it. So.
Well, he's an interesting figure because I think that he had a good run of mixtapes in his initially, and he's always been tapped in with the underground, and he's always
I liked his approach and flow and stuff, and he seemed just kind of have a chill, I don't know, just general aesthetic, but not something that could sustain a whole project. I would like if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like. I liked the one tape I heard, and then I was never really compelled to seek out more.
Right.
The Trippie Redd Rage album, like Trip at Night, the beginning of that album is fire.
Yeah, it doesn't.
I still like that album. I like it a lot.
Maybe that was the one. I don't know. There was one project of his that I heard that I actually liked.
Well, that album at the time when it initially came out, people were like, every song sounds the same.
Reception. Yeah,
it got bad, which is funny to me because. There a lot of the Rage beats on that are of a similar. But it's like, okay, here's another.
I imagine they were song called Matt Hardy 999 with Juice WRLD on it. What the fuck are you?
That's a good song.
That's just Danny Phantom with XXX.
Well, that was
I think that was their and then I had the new beat, right? Is that the one?
I listened to Supercell for this. I did not like Supercell.
I'll hold that. I gave you that as a
heard in my life. Oh my god, that at the core, yeah.
The chorus is not ideal, but at the same time,
that song's this guy sucks. This guy sucks. No, he sucks.
We've turned.
Okay, I really like the one song. I like fucking Mr. Rage is great, but everything else sucks. No. I can't. Damn. I'm trying to think of the one tape I heard that I like, and I can't find it, so I assume he sucks.
Was it? I don't. I'm even gonna try to guess what it was, but
because I looked through every tape he has, and I can't remember it, so I assume it doesn't exist.
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe you were confusing it with somebody else.
The the song that really blew up Trippy the most, like in the beginning, was "Love Scars," which is a crazy good song.
Yeah.
No,
that
he
was
has
like
good songs, but I don't think that he can sustain a whole tape.
I think it's funny.
He's
that
very inconsistent. I agree.
100%. That kind of like phenomenon that you're alluding to, Patrick, I actually think plagues him on the Rage project, where, I mean, hand up, I did recommend Supercell mainly more of the sound than the song.
No, that's
I
why
do like
it. It was part of the. And yeah.
I like that. I like that song. It sounds like a traditional like Rage song.
No,
but,
I like the beat on it, but the lyrics are fucking horrible.
I mean, it's just like a Dragon Ball tribute. But yes, I understand. I got it.
No, I had another review. That was another review I trashed where I said it was like Frank Ocean's Pink Matter written by somebody with CTE.
That's actually amazing.
The CTE bars. That's
the CTE Pink Matter. Well, okay, because I think that project is like, it kind of suffers under the fact that it is a little samey, not to the extent that a lot of people derided it for, but it is an interesting example of like Rage hitting the mainstream. Santurce, you mentioned liking that. Like, what, were you into it at the time? Like, what was, what about it did you fuck with, essentially?
I think I got like hip to the fact that like people were calling it Rage, like pretty much like immediately after the Carti, or at least like the month following, like that January. Mm-hmm. I feel like I started hearing people throw that around, and I wanted more of these beats. I really like them, and I still really like Rage beats. I think there's a lot of cool stuff going on now, but back at this time, when you still had like Hyperpop, JP doing their, they're all over this record, like Loso, Out of Town's all over this record, Starboy's all over this record. Like, I wanted more of this music, and now I think it sounds a lot better than it did back then, because now you don't have these beats coming out anymore. Now, this was the only time you got it, really. Like, this style of Rage, this very brightish style, people don't really make this anymore, to a large extent, unless you're getting, like, a Rage. I don't know, I know, like, a lot of bigger artists, like, who's doing Rage in the mainstream right now? A lot of people, I think, are, like, still taking those.
No, I think it kind of like,
is it completely fizzled out now?
Not phased out completely, but like it kind of had a run of it being a little glossy. And
like
I think
the Young Boy album from this
Thank
year.
you. That's what I'm thinking about.
No, good call. Yeah. He did make a Rage album. But outside of that, the biggest artists that have really done this, I mean, sure, Trippy, but we're like you're the guy. I mean, Ken Carson, right? Would probably be the next biggest like artist that would, and he has mainstream like consistent hit potential, but I wouldn't say he's like that's his. I mean, the Rage has been pretty much his entire sound for his career, going back to Yale. So I don't really know any artist that had a previous sound. Like, you're not going to be hearing I'm making this up, but you're not going to be hearing like a Jack Harlow Rage album. Like, I don't think that's in the works.
Yeah.
Drake Rage album though. Like,
Drake was on this.
Drake was definitely listening to it, but he didn't.
No, I mean, he was on the record. He was on one of the songs.
He was. He was.
That was I really like that song. Not to cut you off, B.
Drake also kind of dropped like a Rage song. What was that fucking song on that little EP? Like,
don't know.
I think the one that like,
all have the
Super Mario produced. The one that Super Mario produced. That's like sort of ragey. I think it's called What's Next.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. But that's a good question. So now we're gonna. This is a good transition point, or talking point rather, because we're now going to get into the discussion of like, what the hell, like, how do we distinguish between? Because there are some things when you hear instantly, you're like, okay, Rage. Like any song on the Trippy album, or obviously any song on Lotta Red, or a lot of songs just in general, you're like, okay, Rage. I understand it. Moving on. But there are some songs that have like tinges, or maybe they're like a secondary, and that's an interesting point where it's like, where does the line blur? Like, I wanted to ask you, Santurce, like, RYM tags the Yeet record 4L as Rage. There are Rage songs on there. genre-defining rage songs on there. In fairness, however, I wouldn't call that a rage album.
I mean, that's the tricky thing when I think people talk about rage. Mostly they're referring to the rage scene, which is like a thing, it's a time and a place. But, then you can get very technical and talk about whatever a rage beat is, like just repetitive, like synths and like super saws, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like at the crux of it, it's just about repeating that. Or every rage beat is pretty much just repeating like the same synth line throughout the whole thing. Like, and that's something that didn't really exist before Pierre. A lot of that comes from Pierre's influence with Carti, the early stuff on Dilate.
It's the tempo too.
Yeah. Like, and that's kind of why I think it's really funny how Rage is called Rage because of the song. Because a lot of Rage isn't ragey.
It doesn't seem particularly angry.
Like Rage is pretty chill.
Okay.
For the most part.
New jazz. All right. So fucking just explain new jazz to me.
Fuck.
Okay. Explain these goddamn genre names to me, please.
Oh man, they're getting better every year.
Yeah,
we can talk about new jazz. New jazz is great.
Fucking genre names to me.
New jazz is one of the sickest fucking things to happen to. I mean, that's something which kind of came from the rage scene, but it's not really like. We're at that point now where rage is kind of splintered off into like you have different sounds. Like some of them are really different. A lot of them are connected to the scene in a way, but it's kind of crazy how we're only 2-3 years out and everything is so like different already.
Is there any kind of jazz in this whatsoever?
No.
Okay.
It's not about it being jazzy. It's
all right.
It sounds more like Yeet than jazz.
Nice.
Like it kind of builds off of. I mean, have you ever heard of Amir? Like Amir Prod?
Amir Van?
Jeez, no.
That's actually worse.
Man.
No, but okay, that's actually a good point, Santurce. I'm cutting it because I wanted to.
I was going to go with that.
Only
that was the
because,
dumbest thing I could think of to say.
Only because before you get back to your explanation of new jazz, these little like subgenres that have sprung up, it's really easy to be like, oh, it sounds more like Eat, or oh, it sounds more like Slay World, or oh, it sounds more, because they're micro genres now. Like these are things that unless you're like very, very plugged in with a lot of artists in their circle, and new artists spring up all the time and are just making stuff that sounds vaguely similar to X but is now going to be defined as Y. And that Y is going to have some label that somebody coined out there that was like a joke at first, but now it's actually the name of the subgenre or the genre. So it is interesting.
One of my favorite things about favorite subgenres is Flying Lotus literally said, "Oh yeah, I make aqua crunk," and I think somebody fucking submitted that somewhere.
Submitted that in our way. two releases under it. That's it. That's the only
aqua crunk.
Oh my gosh! But okay, so on Rage, would you? I think we would joke.
All right, so back to the discussion.
Yes, you guys would agree that the biggest Rage album outside of a Whole Lotta Red is Up to Me, or the biggest one. I guess Two Alive was a mainstream record. I don't know. The Yeet run toward the in the latter half of 2021, and then Two Alive. I think those are the biggest, like most impactful.
Yeah, between
in terms of
the
ripples they had on the underground and whatnot, and also like, blowing him up into the mainstream. Now him being on Interscope, whatever.
Yeah.
So, I think those are definitely, and in terms of Rage on these albums again, Whole Lotta, to me, it's like the S tier, the top tier. It's Whole Lotta Red. It's Up to Me. It's Two Alive. Even if you want to include the other like 4L and Alive in there, sure, whatever.
Yeah, that's a
great run. Then there's like a huge drop, and then there's like other good albums, and then there's like DFTK. DFTK, that's a little disrespectful. DFTK, that Young KO album is really good. Like Lancey's best stuff.
Probably Ken and Trippy and everybody we mentioned before probably has like a record or two in that lane.
Yeah, like like their best stuff. Then there's like a drop, and then it's like their okay stuff, and then there's just like, you know, a lot of other stuff in there. That I feel like has come out like, but overall, I think that the seismic ones, the ones that will be remembered, are the Yeet records, and Whole Lotta Red. I feel like those had the most, not only just like viral impact, but just impact on the underground. You'll hear like artists reference them like in songs, and stuff like that. So I feel like that's the most like telltale sign, and people doing similar production. I mean, you got to figure
Poland for a few minutes, because you made me listen to Poland. I've been obsessed with it for the past.
Sure, yeah. Poland is like is like one of the best songs.
That's like, I cannot believe Lil Yachty made this song, because I did not take Lil Yachty honestly. Even after his Serious Artist album, which I thought was cool, and like I thought Lil Yachty was fine or whatever. Although his, like, we got into this in the previous episode, Serious Artist, whatever, press tour kind of pissed me off. This song is amazing.
It's like you talked about Bob Pollard rap. It's just one long hook.
Exactly, yeah. Like, he's pretty much doing something like Good Luck Sailor off 1996 Got It by Voices. It's just one hook. Like, he just, I brought the walk to Poland. And then, but also, first of all, about like singing something at work, it could kind of sound like I'm saying an anti-Italian slur, which is not cool, I guess. But
if you okay, if you strayed hard enough, yeah, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. Like, and also, like, I mean, we're going back to like really regressive stereotypes in America, so it's not really that hard of a pivot.
That's true. So, that's fair. I guess I I don't want to assume anything about anyone.
I work in Elizabethtown.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Shout out to DJ Atari Jaguar. He'll probably get that reference.
But is Poland the best Lil Yachty song? Is it like the ideal Lil Yachty song?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I mean,
it's up there. It's a great song. I think it also is good for his career. It also introduces like the new vocal inflections, like the new presets he's been using.
He uses that stuff on album. That's what pisses me off about the fucking tour he does for his album now, where he's like, oh no, I've grown up and shit. Like, no, you're doing the fucking exact stuff that you've rejected on this new album, like literally 6 months earlier. So
100%. And it was instantly like a fan favorite and a smash amongst people that didn't even like Lil Yachty. Like, everybody liked this song because it was fun. It was fun to sing. That's like the crux of the song.
Yeah, like completely catchy and I can hear like the basic template of Stop Breathing here, actually. Like, in just the way it's structured. Like, it's not nearly as busy, but it's kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, I mean, that structure is like really core to like what you hear in rage music. Like, that's pretty much the core of like most beats. Like, just that kind of like repetitive like saw line.
Yeah, well, one of the things I don't like about the Yeet records versus like Whole Lotta Red is I feel like Yeet kind of drags it out a little bit.
And, you mean up to me?
Yeah, I feel like Yeet stuff like a little more conventional, like 3 minute versus Yachty like gets out in and out.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. What was Poland, like 80 seconds? Like how long was it?
I was about Yeet versus Carti.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I was actually a completely different discussion versus the Poland thing, but
okay.
I went completely other sideways, but
no, you're good.
I think the thing with Yeet is that Yeet is giving verses. Even for as much as people want to say like, they're mumbling or like disconnected stuff, I think Yeet definitely just, he raps verses as opposed to Carti. It's like a whole different approach to how you're making a song.
That is true, but I think that more of a vocalist, and Yeet can be a little uninteresting. I mean, Yeet does rap.
Have you heard the newer Yeet stuff, like Life or Afterlife?
I've not heard Afterlife.
I think the thing with his newer records is his vocals are becoming a little bit more outlandish, and that's the thing. Yeet is not as focused on following like a rage, like a synthy formula. he may follow that formula in the song in terms of like it's just the same beat for like 3 minutes unchanged. But now he's definitely getting a lot more out there with the vocal inflections and the way he raps.
I mean, Yeet as a rapper absolutely has more to offer than Carti as a rapper, but Carti as a vocalist is obviously more compelling than Yeet. So,
what's the one off of 2 Alive that I really like? That was Rollin'?
Yeah, the one where that's the most like obvious. That one is like the most obvious, like Young Thug inspired.
I'm sorry. If this makes more sense, though, I feel like Yeet picks more compelling rap beats than Carti, though. Like in terms of rap beats, like I feel like Yeet will pick like a beat to just rap over for 3 minutes that Carti would get bored with, because Carti's just not going to rap over something for 3 minutes.
He does have I think that there is an interesting list of production on Up to Me, and I'm referencing that because I know that's the one that you've heard. At least I know you logged it. So. But on that album, you have like some of the filthy beats, which there aren't too many, but there are a few of them. And then you have a lot of like the Benny X and Tragic stuff and Tragic.
Yeah.
That producer, I would say, outside of what Filthy was doing on Whole Lotta Red, Tragic to me is the producer I like. Well, I guess like Out of Town and Starboy, but Tragic is up there in terms of producers that I associate with Rage but it's a different type of Rage. It's not like It's not like a Rage song that you would hear for like Ken Carson or even Carti. It kind of sounds like it's more to me like up tempo, and it has a little more like bite to it in the sense that like the Tragic songs on here and even previous songs. I mean, you know, he did Sorry About That, which was the song that initially got his virality, and then he's doing Money So Big, which is another one. He's doing, he did songs on 4L, like, what was it? It was Money Twerk, and what was the other one? Off the Lot, right? So
man, he had a
those
run.
Songs.
For a guy who did all these songs.
They have great I mean, obviously, we talked about it before. I don't want to relitigate my rambling on devoted Yeet episodes on the podcast, but yeah, they have amazing chemistry, and you can hear that. To me, like, Tragic is a producer that really captured an interesting angle of Rage that wasn't explored yet at the time in the production style. So I guess we can talk about some other, Rage characteristics. But Patrick, do you have a favorite Yeet song? Because I'm just curious. Was any song that really stuck out?
We haven't mentioned one song, which is very important.
I was just kind of talking about his general style versus Carti's. I was just talking about the stuff that you had me listen to. So,
right.
Yeah.
I did my best.
It has not fully landed with me, but I like all the projects I've listened to. So,
that's fair.
I mean, look, as someone who's been very annoying about him for like almost 3 years now, like it's, that's all I can hope for.
You converted me, man. You converted me too. I mean, at first I wasn't really, not that I wasn't hip to it, but I didn't really get Yeet from like a whole project perspective, and then just as time went on at like 2021, man, it just really started clicking really, really hard. In the same way that I think like a lot of Carti stuff clicked for me, because there's some times where, like with Dial It and like Whole Lotta Red, like the entirety of the records didn't really click with me. So I think it's just similar, like next up in like the lineage from like internet music, stuff like that, coming up from SoundCloud or stuff. I think he has a similar polarization, where initially it's just not going to make sense.
And that's a good point, because on the topic of like, once people become accustomed to a certain sound, then the next artist that comes and disrupts that or makes a change to that sound is always going to be a little polarizing at first, and then people fall in step with it. So Yeet was kind of like disrupting a little bit of what the what people thought Rage could sound like.
Absolutely.
And then you hear other projects, and you hear a project like the Young KO project, like DFTK, where there's like a real psychedelic vibe to it as well, but it is still like a Rage project at its core. But it kind of sounds like, I mean, KO is literally signed to YSL, so this makes sense. But it kind of sounds like if Young Thug, a younger Young Thug, would have been around at this time, he could have made like a project in that vein, I feel like.
Well,
Yeah,
I feel
see
like this is the type of stuff that Thug has been playing at. Like, he always had tracks that were like, I can't point to them, but you can always like see that this is where he was like aesthetically pointing at with his style.
There's some stuff around like Jeffrey and whatever.
Yeah.
That I think they're not too far away from like especially the more aggressive stuff. I mean, you know,
Again, Gucci though, like it always just like Gucci's
gonna make a Rage project. What would a Gucci Rage project sound like?
Dude, I want Gucci with Working on Dying pretty bad. Like, I feel like that would sound good.
Well, he can ride any beat still, even to this day. So, and his voice is perfect for anything. So,
I don't know what producers he's really working with these days. Like, he's still putting up consistently, but I don't know what like production he has. So it's all very boilerplate. So
yeah, it's very samey.
Finish this episode.
It's very. I know. It is very samey. You know, Joe, you haven't said anything in a minute, did you?
No.
I hope I didn't step on one of your takes.
No. Go ahead. I was gonna say something about the Young Thug thing, but we're past that.
Well, no, we can go back to it.
No. Do you have anything you want?
It was literally just the song. Like, I was just gonna say, like, it goes back to the song. He's done work with Pierre, so like, it makes sense that, you know, like Bad Boy, for example, is like kind of a Rage song.
It is technically a Rage song. That's a good like what is a Rage song, because I gotta tell you, I don't
remember it.
I did send that to Patrick in the homework because it is on.
I didn't get the last bit of homework you sent me, unfortunately. So.
Oh no, you're good. It is because, and honestly, it is on the Rage chart on RYM. Obviously, not the arbiter of all things correct, but I don't know. I'd be interested. Do you think that's a Rage song, Santurce?
I think, and this is where it gets into like what defines Rage, because you have people who say Rage is just this aggressive kind of music, but at the same time, like, you can acknowledge, oh yeah, like there's a lot of Rage music which is pretty chill. Like Get Busy is something where it's really synthy, but it's not particularly like filthy. You know what I mean? Like in something like he would make, like the drums are so much more nuanced. And I mean, it goes to show like how close Pierre was to just doing almost like an exact Rage formula for like most of his career, right? Just, I mean, this repetitive kind of synth work, that's where it comes from. It comes from, and that's why Woke Up Like This probably has the Rage tag on Rate Your Music, because it's like as close as you can get to that kind of beat before people were consciously doing it. And even like when like what Whole Lotta Red came out, right? Are we consciously doing Rage at that point? Is it something which happened slightly after? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just kind of happened, and not to say that it was inevitable to happen, but the producers who, I mean, took influence from like Uzi's camp, like the hyperpop kids, and then Pierre, like these styles were bound to, like, you know what I mean? They were bound to like merge and influence each other.
Yeah, that was another thing I was thinking about in the beginning, was like Uzi kind of had like songs that were precursors to Rage in like 2016, 2017 with like Do What I Want and like, I don't know,
some of the Love Is Rage 2 stuff, right? You could say.
Yeah. People call a lot of that bouncy stuff like virtual. That's what it gets called in like a lot of tutorials and stuff.
Yeah,
you've mentioned the word virtual like 5 times in this podcast. I gotta be like, all right, what the fuck is virtual? It's another word you mentioned that I don't fucking know what you're talking about.
I think people don't really have like
virtual shit with like Starboy and Brandon Finessing a little bit.
Like
it's just like essentially like a precursor.
Yeah, kind of. It'll get called hyperpop a lot too, but I think that's where it gets really confusing too. Because
that's incorrect though. Like,
no, but people have called like a lot of the Rage stuff hyperpop, but it seems to be that it's called hyperpop for a completely different reason than 100 gets called hyperpop. Like the name of that collective was hyperpop, right?
Right.
So when people would be like, oh, I want a hyperpop beat, or like you get Bear One Boss who's like, I make hyperpop. It's like, they're not wrong. Like, you know what I mean? They want a hyperpop beat, but it's just like
no fucking idea what you've said in the past 45 seconds.
Well, no, but this gets to my. I do have a bone to pick with just where we are as in terms of subgenres in general and genres, which is you get this stuff, which is just like in the sense of the pedantic nature of what is and what isn't, you know what I mean, and what umbrella you can fit under. But I guess this loops into my final talking point before we wrap up here, because I don't want to keep you guys too long. But what would any of you like to see from Rage going forward? Like, is it played out? Like, how could it evolve in a way that would be interesting? And, you know, and would Carti revisit this sound, you think?
I don't think he's revisiting anything, honestly. Like, I think he's going to move forward to where, like, I don't want to predict his next direction, so.
I don't think you can. I think it's completely, like, the leaks and all the stuff, they point to him doing more with, like, a rock-tinged sound. I mean, top of, like, the filthy sound, but I don't know.
It's supposed to be called Music, right? That's the new album. It's supposed to be called Music.
I thought that was some RYM trolling. I did not believe that when
I thought so too.
Yeah, I'm not hip. Is that actually a thing?
That can't be.
I hope not.
It's probably like an interview thing. I think he's probably said like my next album's music.
Oh, I did.
It's probably something like that.
Just before it gets lost is I don't know how official this is. Is it Future Wave did like Opium? Did I mention the Opium Cult bootlegs on a previous episode? Like,
oh yeah.
I still want to plug those. Those are absolutely excellent. They're fan made, but it's like a whole lot of Red stuff over even more rocky fan made beats. They're really fucking good. Wyatt, I hope you will provide the appropriate links in the description.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah. Also, the
they're up to 3 volumes now, because I mentioned them in like year end. Now they're up to like 3 volumes. It's like I think almost entirely Whole Lotta Red, maybe a little bit of Dialect in there, but like almost entirely Whole Lotta Red. Yeah, really good shit. Like shout out to Future Wave. So
yeah, I mean, in terms of like, that's a interesting point of Carti not only not revisiting and moving forward, but it is inevitable that the ripples that will come from his next drop are going to change how, you know, they're going to maybe not invent new genres per se, but they're going to change and impact hip-hop in a way that pretty much Pierre was introduced to the world with Magnolia, and then you had Dial-It, which furthered that, and you saw a lot of reactions to that, and a lot of artists that made albums and songs in the vein of Dial-It, or even doing flows like that. And then you just have a whole lot of Red, and it completely, you know, creates a scene and has this huge gulf of influence in a very short period of time. It is personally still my second favorite Carti album, but a very, 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 very close second. A lot of personal impact for me as well. Joe, you said in the beginning of your little opinions on the album that it was his magnum opus. So is it your favorite as well?
Yeah, I would, you know, it's kind of splitting hairs, but I would say it's my favorite, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to pick a favorite Carti record.
That's the best answer. That's the
fair.
Yeah, that's a cop out, but it really is.
That is the correct answer. And if you have listened to this giant Carti episode, this massive celebration of Carti's music at this point,
first, part of 1 of 5.
Yeah, 1 of 5, but this being the last part.
This is not one video, right? This is getting cut.
No. The 100% splice stuff.
It's 10-hour Carti marathon.
Yeah, 100% spliced up. But thank you to all of you for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this celebration of Carti, and thank you to Joe and Santurce for coming on. Thanks to Patrick as always. Thanks to Wyatt behind the boards for this massive undertaking he's going under. And we are living off borrowed time. Our outro music is Stagnated Pace by Cankick. We appreciate all of you for listening. Happy 5 years to Dial-It, and we will see you next time. Peace.
It ain't gonna never stop. It ain't gonna never stop. It ain't gonna never stop. It ain't gonna never stop.
conquered by man. But when the time is right, perhaps the greatest revelation of all time will dawn upon us.